I would like to reconvene the meeting and call the meeting to order for City Council meeting of April 2nd, 2019. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Cordero?
Here.
Councilmember Moats? Councilmember Soto?
Here.
Councilmember Waterfield? Here. And Madam Mayor Patino?
Here. So, Interim City Attorney, Mr. Cinco, could you please give the closed session report?
Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, there was no reportable action after the closed session.
Thank you. Our first order of business is a proclamation, and Councilmember Soto will be giving the presentation.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Mayor. As most of you know, oh, my notes went away. The month of April is International Earth Day, and so I thought that I'd start by just sharing some fun facts about Earth Day, if that's okay. Just one second, all of this is going bonkers here. There it is. So in 1970, the first Earth Day was enacted after the disastrous 1969 oil spill in Santa Barbara by then Senator Gaylord Nelson from Wisconsin. By the end of that year, the first Earth Day had led to the creation of the United States Environmental Protection Agency and the passage of the Clean Air, Clean Water, and Endangered Species Act. Every year since then, Earth Day has been celebrated and used to increase awareness around the importance of environmental protections. This year's Earth Day theme is to protect our threatened and endangered species due to climate change and global warming. According to the Earth Day Network, we are amidst the largest period of species extinction in the last 60 million years. Normally, between 1 and 5 species will go extinct annually. However, scientists estimate that we are now losing species at 1,000 to 10,000 times the normal rate, with multiple extinctions daily. Multiple species will disappear before we learn about them or the benefits they bring to our planet. So with that said, I think I'll go ahead and present the proclamation. Whereas the first Earth Day was enacted in 1970 and engaged 20 million Americans to advocate for a cleaner environment. And whereas Earth Day now has become a worldwide event and has highlighted some of the most critical environmental issues on the world stage. And whereas the City of Santa Maria supports projects that demonstrate and encourage energy conservation and sustainability, as well as clean and healthy environments. And whereas the National History Museum of Santa Maria has offered an Earth Day event for 19 years in the city to highlight conservation and will do so again from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. on April 20th. And whereas Earth Day 2019 will be dedicated to the late Bailey Hudson, longtime Santa Marian arborist. Thank you. Now, therefore, we, the City of Santa Maria, hereby proclaim Saturday, April 20th, 2019, as Santa Maria's Earth Day celebration. Thank you. Mike Lehan.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mike Lehane. I'm the new president of the Natural History Museum of Santa Maria, and a couple of words is all I'm going to say, and those are thank you very much to the City of Santa Maria, Mayor Patino, and the City Council, and also to my board members, officers, and docents in their hard and continuous work to make the museum a focal point of education for environmental issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next order of business is a proclamation, and Councilmember Cordero will be making the presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas the week of April 22nd to the 26th, 2019 has been designated as National Community Development Week to recognize and celebrate the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, program and the Home Investment Partnership Program. And whereas since 1975, the CDBG program has provided annual funding and flexibility to local communities to provide affordable housing and suitable living environment and the basic human services. And whereas since 1992, the HOME program has created and preserved affordable housing for low-income families. And whereas over the past 5 years, the City of Santa Maria has invested more than $5.3 million in CDBG funds and nearly $600,000 in home funds into the community. Now therefore, Alice Patino, Mayor for the City of Santa Maria, does hereby designate the week of April 22nd to the 26th, 2019 National Community Development Week in the City of Santa Maria, and encourages the continuance of increased funding opportunities for both the programs in the coming years in Santa Maria. In witness hereto, the mayor has set her hand to the seal on the second day of April 2019, signed by Alice Patino. And here to receive this is Alicia Vega. Is she here?
Others.
My name is Alicia Vela with the Special Projects Division of the Community Development Department. I just wanted to say thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. As you mentioned, the city has received CDBG funding for over 4 years. These grant funds are an essential funding source for a number of local nonprofit agencies. These agencies are able to provide a variety of programs offering services for seniors, youth, substance abuse, homelessness, and much more. CDBG capital funding has been used to improve public facilities, provide minor home repairs, and revitalize existing neighborhoods. The city has also received funding from the HOME program for over 20 years. This funding source has helped the city fund affordable housing projects and has also helped the city provide security deposit assistance through the Tenant-Based Rental Assistance Program, also known as TBRA. This program has assisted over 850 households in the last 10 years. The Special Projects Division would like to invite council and the public to celebrate National Community Development Week, which is April 22nd through April 26th, and we'll be hosting a tour of CDBG and home-funded projects on Tuesday, April 23rd from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. We will meet at City Hall at 11:45 a.m. that day. A flyer has been provided to City Council, and I also have a few if anyone in the public is interested. For more information, please contact the Special Projects Division in the Community Development Department.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next proclamation I will be making the presentation is Fair Housing Month. Whereas the City of Santa Maria recognizes that the United States Congress enacted Title VIII of the Civil Rights Act of 1968 as amended by the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974 and the Fair Housing Amendment Act of 1988 as a directive for fair housing. And whereas fair housing laws as outlined by said acts guarantee the rights of equal housing opportunities for all residents of the United States, regardless of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status. And whereas the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development has declared the month of April 2019 as Fair Housing Month, And whereas the City of Santa Maria has contracted with the Legal Aid Foundation of Santa Barbara County to perform random testing of fair housing practices of landlords and property managers, review local newspapers for evidence of housing discrimination, assist in resolving discrimination disputes through litigation or referral, make presentations to Santa Maria adult education classes regarding the rights of single parents and ethnic minorities to equal housing opportunities, and conduct community workshops to educate landlords and property managers regarding fair housing. Now therefore, I, Alice M. Patino, Mayor of the City of Santa Maria, do hereby recognize the month of April 2019 as Fair Housing Month in the City of Santa Maria and encourage the continuance of equal housing opportunities for all residents of Santa Maria. Witness there, I have caused the seal of the City of Santa Maria to be affixed the second day of April 2019. And here to receive this is Tanya Villegas of the Legal Aid Foundation.
My name is Tanya Villegas, and I'm the managing attorney for the Santa Maria office of the Legal Aid Foundation of Santa Barbara County. As the mayor pointed out, this was an act established by Congress in 1968 that prohibited discrimination of the sale, rental, or financing of any dwelling based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. The law was expanded to prohibit discrimination based on disability and familial status. In California, we have the additional protections of housing discrimination based on gender, gender identity, sexual orientation, genetic information, marital status, immigration status, source of income. Proclaiming April as Fair Housing Month reaffirms this community's dedication to ending housing discrimination and brings awareness to a very important issue. Legal Aid Foundation of Santa Barbara County, celebrating its 60th anniversary, is proud to join the City of Santa Maria in the relentless pursuit of the principles of freedom and opportunity that we as a community treasure. On behalf of Legal Aid and the community that we serve, thank you.
Thank you very much. And now another proclamation, and Councilmember Waterfield will be making the presentation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This proclamation is Sexual Assault and Awareness Prevention Month. Whereas people of all racial, cultural, and economic backgrounds fall victim to sexual violence, which is widespread and impacts every person in the community, and statistics show child sexual abuse prevention must be a priority to confront the reality that 1 in 6 boys and 1 in 4 girls will experience a sexual assault before age 18. And whereas rape and sexual violence of all kinds continue to occur at an alarming rate, with California having the most reported rapes in the United States, the last 4 years I have been giving this proclamation, and we have not fallen out of the top category on this, and I find that to be really sad. And with the Department of Justice stating that an American is sexually assaulted every 98 seconds in the United States, and whereas emotional and physical scars resulting from sexual violence are often permanent, therefore, working together to educate the community about sexual violence prevention, supporting survivors, and speaking out against harmful attitudes and actions is so important. And whereas a coalition of organizations exist which directly confronts this crisis, including North County Rape Crisis and Child Protection Center, law enforcement agencies, churches, healthcare providers, and volunteers from the community that serve these agencies who are helping in the effort to end sexual assault. And whereas prevention is possible when everyone gets involved, increasing education, awareness, and community involvement, recognizing the compassion and dedication of the individuals involved in this effort, and noting the challenges of the victims, survivors of sexual assault, and their families and friends as they struggle to cope with the reality of sexual violence. Now, therefore, Alice M. Patino, Mayor of the City of Santa Maria, do hereby recognize April 2019 as Sexual Assault Awareness and Prevention Month in the city of Santa Maria and encourages all residents and businesses to participate in a month full of recognition and activities promoted by the North County Rape Crisis and Child Protection Center to increase awareness of sexual assault and to create solutions in an effort to eliminate sexual violence from this city. And this proclamation, and I've got to give a great big thank you to North County Rape and Crisis Center for being making such a huge impact in this area. To accept this is Ann McCarty. Is Ann?
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Patino and members of the City Council. My name is Ann McCarty, and I am the Executive Director for the North County Rape Crisis and Child Protection Center. Thank you so much for recognizing Sexual Assault Awareness and Prevention Month with this proclamation. More importantly, thank you for recognizing the work of the North County Rape Crisis and Child Protection Center as being a critical need in the city of Santa Maria. Last year, the center accomplished 1,654 crisis intervention services to 383 Santa Maria Valley residents. We conducted over 373 programs to 8,362 children, women, and men. Our total units of service for last year were over 24,800. For an agency as small as ours, that's a huge impact in our community and something that we're very proud of. As you acknowledged in the proclamation that you just presented, sexual assault knows no boundaries. Truth is, you all know a survivor, even if you think you don't. The statistics continue to be alarming, and it's imperative that we continue to work until there are absolutely no more. Healing from sexual violence is a lifelong journey, and we are proud that the city recognizes the importance of early intervention as well as education by supporting our work on many different levels. Thank you for honoring us tonight and for continuing to help us with this fight. But April is also Child Abuse Prevention Month, and we are once again, for the 4th year in a row, trying to raise awareness by planting pinwheels. Pinwheels are the symbol of innocence of our children in Santa Maria. We invite you to participate and use your voice and your presence to acknowledge that child abuse continues to be an issue in our community, and you want to be a part of the solution. It's incumbent on us all to continue to work towards a community that does not tolerate any form of violence, that protects our youth, and that speaks out when a child has been abused. Children depend on us to help them, to help the families, and to help our community raise children to be strong, safe, and free from harm. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., with the support from First Five Santa Barbara and Santa Ynez People Helping People, we are planning 352 pinwheels in Santa Maria. These pinwheels represent the 1,760 referrals made to child welfare services in the Santa Maria Valley last year. One pinwheel for every 5 referrals. Let that sink in for a second. In our book, and I'm sure yours, one is too many, but when you step back and you see the magnitude of what that volume of pinwheels looks like, well, it's quite impactful. So we invite all of you to join us tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. at Child Welfare Services, 2125 Centerpoint Parkway, to help us plan a pinwheel for prevention, to use your presence, to use your voice, because you all can make a difference. And we appreciate your support in helping us do the same. And Mayor Patino, I have a couple of buckets of pinwheels that you can pass out to your staff around City Hall and continue to help us spread the word.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And I just want to say, participating in your pinwheel distribution, I met the greatest people that help in the child sexual abuse cases, and one of the organizations is Bikers, the Bikers for the child. That's it. They are an awesome group of, you know what, and their appearance would look like, oh my gosh, but they're out there, their hearts are huge, and they're out there solely to protect the children. So I hope they're going to be out there tomorrow. Oh, good. Good, thank you.
The guy's not here yet. Thank you very much. The next proclamation this evening will be presented by Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas kite flying is a family-friendly, non-polluting, healthy, educational, outdoor-oriented, and fun activity. And whereas kite flying and kite flyers, from Benjamin Franklin to Charlie Brown, are the quintessential part of our own American culture. And whereas kites have made significant contributions to the arts, sciences, mathematics, and history. And whereas Santa Maria Valley Discovery Museum has joined with the American Kite Flyers Association to recognize April as Kite Month, and will use this month to educate the community about the art of kite flying. And whereas the 10th Annual Free Family Kite Festival will be held at Rotary Centennial Park in Santa Maria, California on Sunday, April 14th, 2019. Now therefore, Alice Patino, Mayor for the City of Santa Maria, hereby recognizes the month of April 2019 as Kite Month in the City of Santa Maria, and encourages residents to participate in the joy and excitement of kite flying and go fly a kite. In witness hereto, Mayor Patino has set her hand and has caused the seal of the great city of Santa Maria to be affixed hereto on the second day of April 2019. And here to receive, I think they gave me this just so I could butcher this name. Nancy Costello? Yes. Costello? Say it again.
Thank you, Mayor Patino and Santa Maria City Council. I appreciate the proclamation, and we're very grateful. After hearing all the heavy business and proclamations that came before us, it's a nice day out at the park, so we hope you will join us for our 10th Annual Free Family Kite Festival at Rotary Centennial Park on April 14th from noon to 4 p.m. Bring your family. There's lots of fun activities planned for children and their caretakers, so we'll hope to see you there. Thank you again so much.
Thank you. So our final proclamation this evening will be presented by Councilmember Moats.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and back to heavy-duty stuff. Or this will be a proclamation for Donate Life Month. Whereas organ tissue, marrow, and blood donation are life-giving acts recognized worldwide as expressions of compassion to those in need, and whereas more than 113,000 individuals nationwide and more than 21,000 in California are currently on the National Organ Transplant waiting list, and on average 20 people die each day while waiting for the shortage of donated organs. And whereas more than 600,000 units of blood per year are needed to meet the need in California, and at any given time, 6,000 patients are in need of volunteer marrow donors. And whereas a single individual's donation of the heart, you only get to do that one time, lungs, liver, kidneys, pancreas, and small intestine can save up to 8 lives. Donation of tissue can save and heal the lives of more than 75 others. And a single blood donation can help 3 people in need. and whereas the need for donated organs is especially urgent in Hispanic and African American communities, and millions of lives each year are saved and healed by donors of organs, tissue, marrow, and blood, and the spirit of giving and decision to donate are not restricted by age. And whereas Santa Maria residents can sign up with the Donate Life California Registry when applying for or renewing their driver's licenses or ID cards at the Department of Motor Vehicles. Now therefore, Alice Patino, Mayor of Santa Maria, hereby recognizes April 2019 as Donate Life Month in the city of Santa Maria and encourage everyone to check yes when applying for or renewing their driver's license or ID card or by signing up at the donatelifecalifornia.org or donevitacalifornia.org. And to accept this will be Scott Burns.
Thank you. Thank you. Some of you guys, first, thank you, Mayor and City Council members. Some of you guys, as you noticed that I walked up wearing crutches. You go, well, there's something wrong with that guy. Well, I slipped and fell skiing. But really, the issue that's really why I'm here is I have a transplanted kidney. And most people, you can't tell, you know. But I'm here, I'm alive because somebody put a pink dot on their driver's license. The lady died suddenly. She was a nurse at Cottage Hospital. And about 4 years ago, I got a transplanted kidney. And I do my part every year to pass on the words to people that there are people in this community, in this county, that are on a waiting list for our kidneys. Some of the people, right now there's about 123 people in the county. The county's got 450,000 people. So there's people around here that probably you know. But you don't think about it. I'm just letting you know that's there. Put a pink dot on your driver's license. I'm alive because of that. So thank you very much for this proclamation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Burns.
My driver.
The next item on our agenda will be the public comment period. Madam Clerk, could you please read the criteria for the public comment portion of the agenda?
This time is reserved to accept comments from the public on consent agenda items, closed session items, or matters not otherwise scheduled on the printed agenda. Unless otherwise directed by the mayor, speakers will have 3 minutes to comment. Direction to staff may be given. However, state law does not allow action to be taken by the city council on matters not on the printed agenda this evening. Once the public comment period commences, no other speakers will be allowed to submit a request to speak form.
And do we have any requests to speak this evening? I'm sure we do.
We have 4 requests to speak during public comment.
So no other requests to speak forms will be accepted at this time. And Madam Clerk, could you put the timer on for 3 minutes? Scott Hillis, followed by Mark Rademacher, followed by Susan Parmalee. Good evening, Mr. Hillis.
Good evening. My name is Scott Hillis, and I'm the chairperson for the San Luis Obispo and Santa Maria chapter of SCORE. For those of you who are not aware of what SCORE is, we offer free business advice to folks. We're composed of very successful business people who want to give back to our communities, and we're very proud to be an active partner with Santa Maria, providing our assistance as much as we can. We think we've developed a tool that might be of help to the city of Santa Maria. We are currently working with the city of Pismo Beach. Pismo Beach is going through a streetscape project. It involves 19 blocks of a major street. The folks that run the businesses out there were very concerned about business interruption. So we've been working with them, and we developed a really nice booklet addressing their concerns. This booklet has been provided to the City Council, and it is certainly available to anyone who needs a copy of it. I just want to make sure that you understand that we are available to help as much as we possibly can. We love Santa Maria, we support Santa Maria, and we do know that there is going to be a streetscape project here in the near future. As a matter of fact, today I picked up the latest copy of Business Connections, which is put out by the Chamber, and it is also put out by the Santa Maria Times. And it features a great article in there about your upcoming streetscape project. If we can be of help, please ask us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mark Rademacher, followed by Susan Parmalee, followed by Ernest Armenta.
Mayor, my fellow Santa Marians, thank you for giving me 3 minutes of your time. And to those of you who showed your love for the city by attending the movie that speaks of a business here in Santa Maria, good job. Yes, I used the word business loosely. Santa Maria, it's not too late to learn about the evil business that is in our city. Go watch the movie, Unplanned. It's right next door. It is the true story of a woman who, by God's grace, for God's glory, learned that Planned Parenthood actually murders babies. Abby left Planned Parenthood, unplanned by her, but planned by God. Go see the movie Unplanned. Please. Also, remember, love God and your neighbor, including the neighbor in your womb, in the mother's womb. Praise Jesus. Good night, Santa Maria.
Susan Parmalee, followed by Ernest Armenta.
Quite as tall. Whoops. Okay. Good evening, Mayor Patino, council members, and citizens of City of Santa Maria. My name is Susan Parmalee, and I live in a mobile home park of Casa del Rio Estates here in Santa Maria. I am the outreach coordinator of NSBIT, which stands for the North Santa Barbara County Manufactured Home Team, who advocates for mobile home owners in North Santa Barbara County. We at NSBIT have appeared before the council just about every session since November of 2018, hopefully reminding you and informing the residents of the city what we are fighting for, which is an enforceable rent stabilization ordinance for mobile home owners. As mobile home owners, we do not follow under the laws that cover other renters as we own our home, but we still have to pay rent to the park owners. Yet, like California renters of apartments and houses, we are like they are finding, the rent increases are running us out of our homes and even the state. We see almost every day in the news of predator park owners raising rents $200, $300, or even more. This is not conducive to affordable living. It may be legal, but it's not moral. Just recently in Fullerton and Anaheim, mobile home owners were hit with a drastic increase of 45 to 60% raise. This is what predator park owners do. Fullerton and Anaheim were hit as they did not have a rent stabilization ordinance to protect them. We must have an enforceable ordinance to prevent this before, not after it happens. We believe at this time we do not have any predator owners in the city of Santa Maria, but we always have to look to the future. Owners sell all the time, maybe to a predator. And that if a rent stabilization ordinance is in place, we will not be susceptible to such a detrimental and soul-killing rent increase. We do believe that affordability and a fair return on investments can be done, as it has been demonstrated in jurisdictions all over the state, including Santa Barbara County and the cities that surround Santa Maria. Nesbitt wants to thank the city officials that have been meeting with us and the park owners, trying to come up with an agreeable solution. At this time, recognizing the homeowners' needs has not been met by the park owners, but we remain hopeful. And we want to thank for all you have done, and we want to also say, hopefully, you will protect our future. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Armenta?
Hello,
Good
ladies
evening.
and gentlemen. Well, I made it this time, right on
You
time.
made it
Yes,
this time.
I sure did. I would ask for you folks at home, don't change your channel. Today is going to be a good action meeting, just like in the old days. Remember when the old days were here? When we had robust, packed chamber council meetings. Oh, it was heated and hot, but we got business done. Not like the current city council, ladies and gentlemen. I take no pleasure in this, but I find this council to be boring, dead, flat, no excitement, no changes. I see a council here that you have Measure U. Mrs. Soto asked Mr. Posada a question. Why weren't the community centers open? Mr. Posada came forward and says, we don't got no funding. That's what he said, he don't have no funding. Well, I would say to the Santa Maria Youth Football League and the soccer leagues out there, we have a projected amount of sales tax dollars coming in at $18 million a year. Except that the public service, police and fire department are taking 90% of it. Now, the simple fact is, we have elected officials that say public safety priority number one, but that does not mean that they get all the funding. But nothing's gonna change, ladies and gentlemen, you out there, Youth Football League and all your membership. The only way to do this is to remove multiple members of this council. Multiple members, just kick them right out the door, ladies and gentlemen. That's what needs to be done. I mean, job performance. We look at you, at council members, and why you think all the egg is here? And not just them, just imagine the other side who don't want the hotels to be filled with ag workers. I know it's on the agenda. We got a police department who through the attorney's office, who refuses to bring full disclosure, right, about police misconduct. We just went through a lengthy audit, and it showed, remember, the Police Officers Association, what did they say? They said it was Marty Mariscal's fault. They said it was Larry Labanino. They said it was Alice Patino, and they said it was Dan McConnell. But after that audit, we found out what was really happening. It was the Santa Maria Police Officers Association, jealousy, greed, and envy, and betrayal. I was here, Ms. Patino, I'll end on this. You tell me when any of those officers ever came up to here and defended you. Tell me when Michael Cadero came up here, Michael Moats, or Etta Waterfield, and Ms. Soto came up here. We send a clear message to the Santa Maria Police Officers Association that your outside money is not wanted here. Whatever prestige and power you had is out the door. And be prepared that cuts are coming. The budget is going to be removed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Armenta. Okay, that concludes the comment portion. Before we move on, Mr. Stillwell, any comments? Moving on to the consent calendar, Madam Clerk, could you please read item number 3?
Routine items are presented for City Council approval without discussion as a single agenda item in order to expedite the meeting. The consent calendar is approved by roll call vote with one motion, and these items are discussed only on request of council members.
Does anyone have items they wish to pull for discussion?
Madam Mayor, I do. It has to do with item 3B with the minutes. And what was omitted in the minutes as I read them was a conversation that you had with Mr. Joe Leonard in regards to their new facility out on Highway 1. And if we could have full disclosure on that and
Okay.
to be in the minutes, I'd appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other than that,
So the addition, is that an addition or a correction to the minutes?
amendment.
Okay, amendment, okay, thank you. Mr. Cordero, Mr. Moats?
No.
Dr. Moats, okay.
If there's none other than I'd like to go ahead and approve the consent calendar.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. Having heard a motion and a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Waterfield?
Aye.
Councilmember Moats?
Aye.
Councilmember Soto?
Aye.
Councilmember Cordero?
Aye.
And Madam Mayor Patino?
Aye. Next order of business is a public hearing. Madam Clerk, could you please read the title?
The City Council will consider a recommendation of the Planning Commission to approve an addendum to the adopted Lakeview Promenade Environmental Impact Report and approve a plan development permit.
Staff report is to be made by Community Development Director, Mr. Ng.
Madam Mayor and members of the council, this is a request for a mixed-use project located at the northwest corner of Skyway Drive. Skyway Drive and State Route 135 or Orchid Expressway. The mixed-use project includes apartments and commercial retail and is located on property zone commercial and R3 high-density residential multifamily. This project includes 166 apartment units and 6,600 square feet of commercial facing State Route 135. The apartment project has 43 studios, 77 one-bedroom units, 22 two-bedroom units, and 24 three-bedroom units. Staff reviewed this project using the mixed-use ordinance and applied it to the entire 9.4-acre site, which includes the existing Skyway Center to the south. The addition of the apartments and the commercial spaces on the northern 4-acre portion completes this mixed-use project. This project was reviewed by the Planning Commission at study sessions and at 2 public hearings. The Planning Commission provided guidance to add more amenities, including open space and covered parking. Usually, planned development permits do not require City Council review, but this project includes 2 components that exceeds development standards by more than 25%. This includes the height of the building and the setbacks. So Building 6, which is located in the center of the site plan, is 4 stories and 46 feet in height, which exceeds the 35 feet limit. The balconies of the building facing Auto Park Drive and Mercury Drive also encroach into the setback by a few feet. This project meets all other development standards for parking, landscaping, and open space. For parking, 178 parking spaces are available on site for 166 units. An additional 35 spaces are adjacent to the apartment complex that can be used for a total of 213 spaces. This is a slide showing the project and the open space that's available. Again, the applicant is meeting the open space requirements and is providing over 21,000 square feet of outdoor amenities, including decks and patio areas. For landscaping, the applicant is providing over 40,000 square feet in landscape areas, including green roofs. Here are some architectural renderings of the apartment project. The architecture is best described as modern, but also with elements that tie in with the existing shopping center to the south. There is good variation in building form and contrasting colors. The east elevation shown here at the bottom shows the building with vertical mixed use, so you can see the apartments on top of the commercial units, and this is a building that faces State Route 135. Again, the applicant asked for the following modifications in building height and front setbacks. Staff and the Planning Commission are supportive of the overall project design and believes the project will be a good addition to the housing stock on the south side of the city. This is the recommendation that the City Council accept the recommendation of the Planning Commission and take the following actions. Adopt a resolution approving the addendum to the Lakeview Promenade Final Environmental Impact Report, and to adopt a resolution approving the Lakeview Mixed-Use Project Plan Development Permit PD 2018-0008. I'm available for any questions, and I believe representative from the applicant is here.
Any questions of Mr. Ng?
Oh, I just have one.
Dr. Moats?
Yeah, Mr. Ng, so we're going to have part of that be 4 floors, and that's what causes the height limit to be exceeded?
Correct. So you can see 6 buildings on the site plan here. The only building that exceeds the height is Building 6 in the center of the site plan. The other buildings are 2 stories. And this is what triggers the council review. They exceed the height limit of 35 feet.
Yep, Ms. Soto?
Thank you. Can you remind us why we have that 35 feet limit?
I think that's a development standard that's been in the code that was set by a previous council.
But it's not like hazardous or dangerous, like is there?
Height limits and development regulations, they're intended to achieve a certain look, a certain form. Some cities are okay with 4, 5, 6-story buildings. For Santa Maria, the height limit is 35, and you can usually achieve 2 to 3 stories. In this case, we have a 4-story proposal, but we believe that the applicant has designed the project in a certain way to make the overall to make the building blend in with the area, and with the surrounding buildings being lower in height, we believe that the aesthetic impact will be minimal.
Ms. Waterfield?
Mr. Ng, I'm looking at the diagram, the original one that you looked at, and I mean, this project, it came before me in Planning Commission a long, long time ago, and there's a lot that has happened in changing this whole entire design over here. So I'm sure that you and the planning commissioners have gone through this already. I'm looking at the traffic of how traffic flow of in and out. So does Auto Park Drive go all the way out to the road that will connect to the signal light on 135?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
So the previous project was a more intense project.
Yes.
And this is a less intense version of that project. They did do a traffic study for this project, and one of the mitigation measures is the installation of a traffic signal. And the traffic signal will help control the left turns out of Auto Park Drive onto Skyway.
Okay.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you.
Dr. Moats?
Yeah, and the signal at Auto Park Drive and Skyway will be synchronized with the one at Skyway Drive and Broadway, so that people don't get hung up badly and 2 signals close to each other?
That would be a condition of approval, and they would work with the Public Works Engineering team and also with Caltrans to achieve that.
I just want to have one other observation. The development, or the developer of this property, is also the developer of the property immediately to the south, which is very convenient, because I noticed that there's a lot of entryways between the 2 properties, and it provides, 35 more accessory parking spots in the commercial area that could be used for residential.
This is designed as a mixed-use project, and one of the amenities of being a mixed-use project is the close proximity of the housing units and the commercial retail center.
And I'm sure the businesses are very happy in the south to have all the new residential in the north.
Those businesses should have more foot traffic.
So should Spencer's. Should be voted well. But I have one question.
Ms. Waterfield?
The one large building on the project to the south, is there where the church used to be? Is there any plans for that yet?
I can defer that question to the applicant.
Oh, okay, great.
And the applicant, I'm sure, is here. And would the applicant like to speak? Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. I'm Brian Schwartz, Third and Plan Concepts. We have a very brief couple slides for you to show you this evening. The applicant, Brad Vernon, is here. Thank you. As well as our entire project team. So if there's additional questions about traffic or architecture, we have our team together tonight. This is the area map. It shows the project site highlighted in yellow. It just, this particular slide really shows the amenities near the site. There is the commercial directly to the south. Also, right across 135, there's restaurants and commercial uses there. Waller Park is directly to the west, and then there's existing businesses and future businesses, hopefully with the airport-specific plan, that's to the west also. So we believe it's a good location for infill housing. Councilmember Waterfield referred to this project. It was approved about 10 years ago, and it did have approximately 100 more residential units and about 8,000 more square feet of commercial.
Excuse me, Brian, before you go any further, can someone in the back close the back doors, please? Because I'm hearing the talk in the hallway. Thank you.
Do you think we can turn up the lights for us town folks back here? Thank you.
There was an EIR done for the project. At that time, there was statements of overriding considerations for significant impacts to air quality, and there was, as part of those considerations, overriding considerations, there was community benefits that were discussed as part of that document, and some of those benefits are still very relevant today, having compact design, close to amenities, providing a mixture of units, close to employment centers. This is a slide from the previously approved Lakeview Promenade. It shows residential buildings, 4 of them, that were of heights between 49 feet and 57 feet that were approved. And this is the current site plan. It's hard to read the building heights there, but you can see along the perimeter, the building heights are 34 feet, and then the 146-foot building in the center. There was about 4 study sessions with the Planning Commission and 2 public hearings. The site plan has changed quite a bit. There's a more open feel to it. There's a number of areas that have open space to the south of Building 6, on the corner of Mercury and Auto Park. You'll see the orange tot lot there, as well as other open space. And then in between Building 3 and 4, those are the 2 buildings at the top. There's about a 100-foot separation there. And the next couple slides just show renderings of what the project is envisioned to be. This is the open space area just south of Building 6. There's about twice the amount of trees being planted on this site to increase shading, cooling, vertical greening. And this is the corner. The exhibit that Mr. Ing had was a little bit outdated. One of the buildings was removed off the corner, and the open space in the tot lot has been expanded on that corner area. So this is a more accurate representation of it. In summary, the project provides housing opportunities in the mixed-use setting. Other than the 2 exceptions that are being requested tonight, it meets or exceeds all the standards of the mixed-use ordinance and implements those objectives. It is near a variety of amenities, and it's environmentally less impactful than what was previously approved. Thus the CEQA addendum before you tonight. I want to thank staff for all their work processing this project. We've reviewed the conditions of approval and the staff report. We agree with it, and we hope you'll approve the project tonight. We're available for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Schwartz? Mr. Cordero?
Thank you, Mayor. Not as much a question, just a reference to the 2 issues concerning that triggered the matter being brought before the council. I don't really have an issue with the Building 6 being a little higher. It's in the center. It doesn't appear as though it's going to detract from any vision from anyone else in the area. And the few feet that we're talking about on the encroachment for the setbacks, I just don't think that's going to be an issue for us. So regarding those 2 issues, I think we just learn to accept them as they are here, and and not make a big deal out of them. I am slightly concerned about the parking that you're sharing with the business associated. Even though they're both the same owner at this time, is there anything to protect both property owners in the event that the ownership changes? And if the mixed-use project becomes dependent on those parking places, what happens to them? And how is that protected so that we don't have a problem in the future between these neighbors? And then it ends up back in this room saying, well, you guys approved it. You should have thought of this then. Is there any protection there?
So, Councilmember Cordero, the project currently exceeds the parking requirement on site at the northern half. So within their own parcel, they do exceed the minimum parking requirements. There is an opportunity for a shared parking agreement with the property to the south. We explored that previously on some of the other iterations, and then we found that shared parking wasn't necessary because it exceeded the minimum requirements at this point. If that is something that the council wishes to place as a condition of approval, to have a reciprocal parking access on that, then that would certainly be, I think, okay with the applicant. I do also want to point out, on-street parking, the units, many of the residential units do face Auto Park and Mercury, and just along the residential portion of that, there's approximately 40 spaces that could be used, technically not counted on-site, but will probably be used for off-site parking as well.
Okay. That relieves a little of the pressure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Moats?
Yeah, Brian, I had two questions. First, is this going to be, these are apartments for rent?
Correct.
These are going to be market rate rents?
Yes, they are.
Okay, the second question is, if there are more guests that want to park to visit friends and such in this development, what's to prevent them from parking in the commercial parking areas immediately to the south?
There really is no restriction in place right now, Councilmember Moats. There is approximately, at full build-out of the center to the south, about 40 extra spaces. So even if every single space in that commercial center to the south was being used per the code, there would be an additional 40 spaces. So with the Councilmember Cordero's suggestion of a shared parking agreement, that would be even more, I think, amenable to having guest parking.
Yeah, one more.
Go ahead.
What's going to happen to the big building that Nissan had, that the church moved into, that's now seemingly not being used for anything?
I just asked the applicant that there are no plans for future tenants at this time.
Ms. Waterfield?
One question, or one comment, and looking at the concerns that the other city council has, the Skyway Commercial Center, where you see that imprinted, all that parking is behind the commercial businesses, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of people will be parking up front. I would probably think that the employees that will be working at this commercial center would be parking in back, but there is a whole row of parking, and I'm sure there's going to be a reciprocal parking agreement between the owners and the tenants. So it looks like the parking is covered pretty well on that part of it. Yeah.
Okay. Ms. Soto?
Yeah, so would that mean that each, right, thank you, that each, yeah, so, I see. Yeah, because there's, 166 units?
There is.
And 180 parking spots? So that means one vehicle
Per unit,
per unit?
yes.
And will that be like in a HOA or part of the lease that people have to sign? I feel like we're getting into the weeds.
Since they are going to be apartments, there is no HOA. They will be professionally managed by the leasing company, and that parking restrictions and a parking program will be enforced. There are garages, there are carports, and those will be assigned to each unit.
Mr. Schwartz, let me ask you, what was the rationale for the front setback modifications? I should say the reduction in them.
Sure.
Yeah.
Mayor Patino, currently the building structures meet the setback. They are set back 20 feet and 15 feet from the streets. The request is for the balconies to encroach into that setback. And the design is conducive to having a good, strong street frontage appearance.
Okay.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
It's like Refugio for how they put their setbacks on Professional Parkway and right. It looks very nice. So
Any other questions from the council?
if there's no other questions, I'd like to.
Wait. Any written communications?
We have no written communications.
Any requests to speak?
We have no request to speak.
Okay, discussion.
Madam Mayor, if there's no further discussions, and I'd like to make a recommendation that we adopt a resolution approving an addendum to the Lakeview Promenade Final Environmental Impact Report for a mixed-use project on 4.0 acres located at the northwest corner of Orchid Expressway, State Highway 135, and Skyway Drive. And do I read the other recommendation as well into Mr. Ing? Do I read both recommendations into?
Councilwoman
One at a
Waterford,
time?
yes.
Okay, so I also recommend adopt resolution approving the Lakeview mixed-use project plan development permit for a mixed-use project on 4.0 acres at the northwest corner of Orchid Expressway, Highway 135, and Skyway Drive.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, I won't reread the motion, but I will say there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Waterfield? Aye. Councilmember Moats?
Aye.
Councilmember Soto?
Aye.
Councilmember Cordero?
Aye.
And Madam Mayor Patino?
Aye. The next order of business is a regular business item. Madam Clerk, could you please read the title?
The City Council will consider adoption of an urgency ordinance to impose a temporary moratorium on new and future use of any motel, hotel, or efficiency project in the City of Santa Maria to house H-2A temporary employees.
And the staff report will be made by interim city attorney, Mr. Cinco.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. As we all have learned, the H-2A visa program is a federal program that authorizes the lawful admission into the United States of temporary non-immigrant workers to perform agricultural labor of a temporary or seasonal nature. Employers are required to provide housing at no cost to the workers and provide each worker with either 3 meals per day, for which they can charge them, or furnish cooking facilities where the workers can prepare their own meals, and also provide daily transportation between their living quarters and the work site at no cost. It is the requirement to provide housing, of course, to the workers that's having an impact on the city. And with respect to the housing, staff first became aware of the federal H-2A visa program in 2015 and the housing requirement when the former Budget Inn motel located on 1100 North Broadway was purchased by Betteravia Farms LLC, a local agricultural employer, to house the workers it hired under the program. Staff was supportive and worked with the employer to resolve some zoning issues that arose from the use, which included the fact that H-2A workers would be staying at the location for more than 30 days. And since this property is located in the C2 Commercial Zoning District, which generally prohibits residential uses except for transient occupancies, which are defined as stays of 30 days or less. Staff believed, however, that the housing of H-2A workers was consistent with the C2 zoning requirements because of a longstanding city policy concerning the checking out and checking in of motel guests on the 30th day of their stay. This policy began in 1995, and it still remains city policy. It's basically was designed to prevent displacement of permanent residents of the city who really couldn't afford any other housing, and it was kind of a safety measure to help prevent homelessness. The city was able to allowed this because it also received transient occupancy tax for these stays, which was the reason for having the limitation on residential occupancy in these properties in the first place. Shortly after that, staff was also supportive of the conversion of the former Lazy Day senior living residence located at 1311 North Broadway to a boarding house use to house H-2A workers. That project was a little bit different because it had a legally existing non-conforming R3 residential use, so that was easier to find that it was consistent with the zoning. More recently, in August of 2018, city staff was approached by Betaravia Farms about a planned purchase of the former, what's now the former Eco Lodge Motel located at 210 South Nicholson Avenue, again to house its H-2A workers. Largely because staff had previously interpreted the use of motels for H-2A housing as continuation of an existing motel use, and it was consistent with staff's previous interpretation of the Betaravia Farms' use of the former Budget Inn to house its H-2A workers. Staff advised Betaravia Farms that a discretionary permit and review is not required under these circumstances. Some local residents found out about this project very recently in the last couple months and have raised some objections and concerns about the use of this property and questioned why a discretionary permit and a public hearing was not required. I have explained basically it was based on previous staff interpretation of municipal code and longstanding policy. Undoubtedly, the use by local agricultural employers of the H-2A program has created some challenges to the city due to the significant numbers of H-2A workers who require housing. Staff is estimating that more than 2,000 H-2 workers are currently or soon will be housed in the city for up to about 10 months or so. Slightly more than half, about 53% of the workers are believed to reside currently in the primarily the older motels and hotels and also the Lazy Days senior living residents or former Lazy Days that are located in the C2 commercial district along Broadway, and now in addition the former Econo Lodge. And that leaves about 47% to be housed in the city's residential zoning districts. This has had an impact on the city's housing supply by reducing vacancies even lower than their historical lows, by reducing the supply of housing for permanent residents. And the use of the hotels to house H-2 workers has also had an impact on some of the city's more vulnerable residents who are unable to afford more traditional housing options. As a result of this, there's concern on the part of the public and city officials that some discretionary review and permitting should be taking place with respect to any motel or hotel in the city before it is allowed to house H-2A workers. As the council is aware, staff has been studying and working on some proposed regulations concerning H-2A housing in the residential zone. That will be before you actually in 2 weeks, the proposed ordinance. Staff has always intended to study the use of commercial areas for H-2A housing after the residential component was resolved. Again, getting back, because staff has interpreted the city's municipal code in such a way that the housing of H-2A workers is consistent with the motel use, this has allowed an agricultural employer to purchase a hotel and use it to house workers without having to obtain a discretionary permit and be reviewed. So the concern is legitimate, especially since the City Council has never officially confirmed or expressed its approval of how staff's interpreted the municipal code. So now is as good a time as any to do that. Also, as is mentioned in the staff report, there's been at least one contact to a member of the City Council that somebody was interested in purchasing and acquiring the Vandenberg senior residences to house H-2A workers. That would probably almost certainly require a conditional use permit or some kind of plan development review. However, based on a review of the code, there was a chance that it could be converted to an efficiency unit project without discretionary review. And for that reason, it was included in the proposed urgency ordinance. However, that subsequently it's been studied further, and that possibility may not be accurate. It may be required to have discretionary permit. So that would be something that the council could remove from the proposed urgency ordinance if it was so inclined. As the council knows, an urgency ordinance is allowed to be adopted. It takes effect immediately. It does require a 4/5 vote of the council, and it will remain in effect for 45 days unless extended, and it can be extended for up to another 10 months and 15 days. In this particular case, the urgency ordinance is proposing a temporary moratorium on the new and future use of any hotel, motel, or efficiency unit project for the housing of H-2A workers, so that a permanent ordinance concerning possible discretionary review of this use could be studied and enacted by the City Council. The council does have some alternatives. They could decline to adopt the urgency ordinance and retain the status quo, or it could decline to adopt the urgency ordinance but direct staff to conduct further investigation and research concerning HTOA housing in the city's commercial zones and bring it back at a later time. That concludes my staff report. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Senko. So, over a week ago, a woman came up to me and said she heard that the city of Santa Maria had purchased the Vandenberg Inn and that we were going to turn it into H-2A housing. And not knowing and then I had to leave town, I went back to D.C., and not knowing whether or not it was protected by a senior housing, whether it was going to be a discretionary review permit. I didn't know that. And so I thought, we better put the brakes on here and see what we have. And I know we were going to look at the ordinance for the motels and hotels and for efficiency units, but not until after we finished looking at the residential. So I asked that this be put on the agenda so that we can just stop, take a breath, and figure out what we're going to do. A few years ago, we had the hotel burned down here in Santa Maria, and there was probably, I'm going to guess, around 40 people that lived in there that were displaced by that fire. It was very, very difficult for us to find a place to put these people, and this was basically low income. So I'm thinking if we had to address, and we have to address issues that concern the homeless in Santa Maria, I can't imagine what it would be like to address issues if we had something like the people at Vandenberg Inn displaced. So anyway, I just want to give you some background. I want to keep this very, very narrow in scope, that this is hotels and motels, efficiency units, and we will be discussing the residential in 2 weeks at our future meeting. Okay, any questions of Mr. Senko? Ms. Waterfield?
I do. I was approached as well, but it was a different question. Not only about the Vandenberg Inn, but someone had wanted to build efficiency apartments behind Vandenberg Inn in their parking lot because it doesn't require a whole lot of parking. Would that be under the senior citizens or the senior purview of it, or could it just be anybody moving into something like that? Because as with Mayor Patino, I want to make sure we cover all our bases because we're getting a lot of inquiries every day about what's going on, and especially with this Vandenberg Inn coming up. It was the motel, the economy that triggered the city of Santa Maria, and so I just want to make sure we get everything covered in regards to that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council, Councilmember Waterfield. The answer is, would be possible, and that's one reason why it was included in the urgency ordinance. It would be possible for planned development permit to be pulled to build efficiency units on that site that were not conditioned on senior housing, and then we wouldn't be able to say who lived in it and who didn't, because that's just not what we do. The senior housing, except senior housing, you can condition it because they get certain concessions and reduced parking and things. So that would be possible if we didn't have something in place. However, the efficiency unit review, or excuse me, the efficiency project would be reviewed, and if it wasn't going to be used for senior housing, I'm not sure that staff would be able to support that, but that would be a question directed to Director Ng.
Dr. Moats?
Yes, Mr. Senko. Are you aware of anyone who would be harmed by this emergency ordinance or a 45-day moratorium? Are you aware of any real estate transactions that would occur during that time period that would have to be delayed? Can you think of anyone who would be harmed in any way if we enacted this moratorium this evening?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Councilmember Moats, members of the City Council. I am not personally aware, and the ordinance was drafted in such a way as to protect any, approved uses or any current uses for at least a period of time. If there's a property in escrow that is intended to be used for this purpose, and as long as there would be a contract executed between the agricultural employer for workers that was in effect, or if there was a permit for the use that was applied for by tonight, then the project would be protected. I'm unaware of any projects that would be harmed by this ordinance, but that's not to say there might not be one. There might be one out there, but I'm unaware of it.
Okay, and just to be perfectly clear, the Betaravia Project Santa Maria Hotel on South Nicholson would not be affected by this urgency ordinance?
That is correct.
Ms. Soto?
Yes. Madam Mayor, thank you for giving us some background as to why this emergency ordinance is on tonight's agenda. And with that, I want to ask, what current protections do we have for seniors and keeping them in their homes, state, federally, and locally?
Mayor Patino, members of the City Council, Councilmember Soto. There's a lot of protections, I'm sure. The seniors are usually housed, at least in senior housing projects, they're housed in a project that is conditionally zoned for, or conditionally permitted for that use. And like I said earlier, there's oftentimes concessions that are made, density bonuses, or other conditions that if there was a change from a senior use, it would have to be like affordable housing use to get those same concessions. As far as basic protections for seniors, there's just the standard, aside from that, if it was a project that wasn't necessarily just a senior project, it was a general housing project that didn't have any concessions, and it was just a normal rental problem, they would have the same protections that anyone would have. They'd have to have a certain notice given for their rents, for their eviction notices. But we don't really have any particular protections aside from the fact that certain projects have been conditioned as senior housing. It would be difficult to change that designation.
But currently, let's say, right, if Vandenberg were to if someone were to buy that and would want to turn it into H2A, what would the process have to look like for that to happen?
Thank you. That process would involve undoubtedly the filing of a plan development permit to make some changes, because I'm pretty sure there were some concessions granted for that project that would allow it to be senior citizen housing. If it wasn't going to be senior citizen housing anymore, it's likely that they would have to get a discretionary review and a discretionary permit.
So that would mean going through the city, going through planning, and then coming to us?
Yes, if it was appealed, or if it required a rezoning, then it would come to you, like the Lakeview project did. You didn't see the development permit itself, you saw the legislative action, the rezoning.
So with that answer, I have another follow-up question. In the report, it stated that there is a current and immediate threat to the health, safety, and welfare of city residents arising from increased use of motels. Explain that, because I'm part of the council, and I didn't have any part in putting this on the agenda.
Well, that's kind of a term of art. The language is basically from the statute that authorizes urgency ordinances, and it's a finding that the council would have to make in order to pass the ordinance. The finding would be based on the statements, the provisions, the statements set forth in the ordinance that's before you would contain these findings.
The findings being?
Sorry, let me, for example, in paragraph F, one of the, toward the top of page 3, increased use of motels and hotels in the city for housing of H-2A workers has the potential to negatively impact the city's supply of available housing, increase homelessness, and impact economic development. That's, for example, a finding that the council would make if it adopted the ordinance, and that would fall under the language that you quoted about the immediate threat to public health and safety. It sounds, you know, dire and urgent, because that was the context of where these ordinances were written, but over the years, they've been allowed quite a bit of leeway to legislative interpretation of those.
Right. Yeah, you know, and with that answer now, I just feel like we're lumping everything into one thing, right? Where we're saying that we're comparing motels to permanent housing into this ordinance. And it just seems like this is just being really rushed. And so I guess I'm just trying to figure out, and from what I'm understanding, permanent housing such as Vandenberg Senior Center and other centers such as those would already be somewhat protected because of the process that it would have to take to convert them to H-2A. And so by us saying that it's the same thing, motels, and that just, it doesn't, that's not clear to me.
Well, I regret I regretted having to put in the efficiency unit projects with the hotels and motels. I realized it would have been a lot cleaner, but because of the possibility that Councilmember Waterfield said about if somebody wanted to build an efficiency unit project there would be a lower level of discretionary review. And at the time that I wrote the staff report, it looked like it was a permitted use that we might not have complete discretionary, we might not have discretion over some elements of it. I was concerned enough to put it in there as a precautionary measure. But as I said, after further study, that could be eliminated from this, and then the findings would apply only to the motel and hotel use, which there is evidence that the increased use for H-2A housing could increase homelessness and displace people who are permanent residents of the city, and make it more difficult for them to find housing. So there is a basis for the ordinance. It doesn't mean you have to find it. If the council doesn't believe that that finding is adequate or that's not an urgency, then the council doesn't make the finding. But legislatively, you have a lot of leeway to make those kinds of findings.
But right now, after the last planning commission after the last time the planning commission reviewed H-2A, and based on that decision, right, moving H-2A out of R1s and R2s, right? Please correct me if I'm wrong. And now we're placing this emergency ordinance. So, if we don't want them if we don't want workers in residential areas, and right now we're saying that we're not that we can't have them in our motels, and I understand that this is temporary, but it just feels like this is very rushed, and it also seems as if though we're not honoring the process that we initially started. Bottom line, right? Over 6 months, we've been in this process for over 6 months now. Staff has been putting so much time and energy, and we've been getting community input for a rushed ordinance to be put together in less than 24 hours, and not talking to the rest of the council and saying that we're seeing this as an emergency. It just feels, it doesn't make sense.
Well, and I can respond to that because our council has never confirmed or expressed its approval one way or the other on this. And there are other residential areas and apartments or efficiency units that could be included, and I just don't know what's out there. Do you know what's out there?
I do not, but again, that's why we have processes in place, like Mr. Cinco just mentioned.
But here's only dealing with hotels, motels, and efficiency units. We're not talking about residential, because that's a separate thing that we'll be dealing with in 2 weeks. So it's separate.
I understand that piece, but what's not separate in this ordinance is still the permanent housing, like we're talking about senior centers. I mean, that's why this was put together. And so again, we're lumping all of this into one thing when they're two separate things. We're talking about them as if they were the same thing when they're not.
Okay,
I mean,
fine. Yes, Dr. Motz.
Yeah, another question.
Yes.
So, Mr. Senko, we've set a precedent now, multiple times in the city of Santa Maria, that someone can buy a hotel and convert it into H2A. Now, we're going to go back on that a little bit, and we're going to require possibly some form of discretionary permit. What does that mean? And what would, say, someone who wanted to buy a hotel and convert it to H2A have to do that's different than what the precedent has already been established?
Mayor Patino, Councilmember Moats, members of the City Council. As the mayor just correctly stated, what I stated in the staff report, this was a staff-level interpretation. Staff does this all the time. Director Ng does this all the time. We interpret the codes, and I laid out the reasons why this progressed along this trajectory and why we're here today. The issue of whether this interpretation is something that the council agrees with is certainly a fair point, something that we can and should discuss. According to Council Member Soto's point, it doesn't necessarily have to be in the context of an urgency ordinance. That's why we proposed the alternative, that we could just be directed to go and study it further, and staff had planned on doing that anyway. Not necessarily recommending discretionary review, but that's certainly something that would be part of the discussion now. The difference from the way it is now to what it could be with a discretionary review is that instead of just purchasing a hotel and basically moving the workers in and operating it as a hotel for the transient workers, it would require an application to the planning department, and it would have to be reviewed. That review could be delegated to the zoning administrator, or it could be reviewed by the planning commission, and then either way it could be appealed all the way up to the city council, like any other land use decision that requires a discretionary permit.
So if that's the case, what sort of situation would arise where the planning commission or the person in charge of making the decision might deny a permit to convert a hotel into H2A housing?
I am not really able to predict how that would be. Each case is different. I imagine there are a set of facts out there that it could be found legally defensible, which is, of course, my concern. Whenever findings are made that they're legally defensible, that certain location is inappropriate for the use for whatever reason, that the scale of the operation is too big for the location or something like that, it might be difficult to make those findings given the past practice and some would say the appropriateness of the use. So it may be difficult, but I think that on a case-by-case basis, the deciding body could make the findings that would be defensible in court if challenged.
Okay, and to follow that up, you said location might be an issue whereby such permit would be denied. What does that mean? Location near someplace else, like a hospital?
Yeah.
Or?
Yeah, well, I was thinking a sensitive use.
I was joking by that, I didn't mean.
Yeah, I mean, for example, there's one obvious difference between the Budget Inn and the former Budget Inn and the former Econo Lodge. While they're both hotels and they're both the same use, one of them's located in the C2 commercial zone, the other is located in a freeway serving district. Findings could be made, and I'm not prepared to do that tonight, and I'm not asking the council to even engage in that, but it is theoretically possible that based on evidence and what the council could make findings that a particular use of the hotel in the freeway serving district for H2A would not be an acceptable use. Of course, arguments could be made on the other side that it's the same use regardless of whether it's in the freeway serving zone or the C2 zone. There's many other ways that, in terms of location, maybe it's near, maybe the scale of the operation is considered, it's proposed to be expanded, and it's near sensitive uses. Maybe, I don't know, maybe some kind of mental health facility or something that with sensitive users that the increased people, I don't know, I'm really struggling now to come up with things that might be, because I really hate talking in hypotheticals, but the circumstances could exist where a particular location, based on other relevant facts, findings could be made. It's very difficult to say it always has to be allowed or it would never be allowed.
So what I'm hearing is that it would be based on each individual case by case.
That's correct.
Yeah, but you have to have some criteria by which to decide it on case by case.
And I'm prepared to help you develop that criteria
And that's where we come in
after
with
the council
policy
deliberates the issue.
And Madam Mayor, if I may please add,
That's why
and I will go back to the Planning Commission meeting about 10, 11 years ago, where we took the old motels and to convert them into efficiency units because of the low-income people that were living in cars with their children. Some of the discussion we had was the firewalls in between each motel room, because it wasn't made to have cooking facilities or anything at all like that. I don't know when, and if you would please email that information to me, when did this become H2A free fall for all motels to go in under that? Because it was under the condition, it was only for that purpose, and it was to stay on North Broadway and not to exceed Stoll Road. Now, with this Econo Lodge, we've gone way off that street, and so we need to find out, if you could let me know what was going on back then, what staff, well, it doesn't matter what staff changed it, but the reasoning why staff decided to take it upon themselves and not bring it back to Planning Commission to discuss something that was already approved by Planning Commission. So, and that's why we're here, is because, you know, the City Council has never confirmed or officially expressed its approval or disapproval on how staff conducted that. So I know we were all excited, from what I understand about the TOTs, taxes, that we could still run them as a TOT, but I don't want to sell out the residents of the city of Santa Maria for TOT tax. That is not acceptable in my understanding of all this. So if you could get that information to me, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, questions, Mr. Cordero?
Thank you, Mayor. At the request of the mayor, when we first started this, to try to keep this somewhat narrow, the senior citizens that are currently living at Vandenberg, however many there are those people who we should all be thinking are worthy of our concern and our protection as much as we can give it. Are they protected from getting a notice in 60, 90 days that says, well, you guys got to move because this is going to be converted to H2A? Are those people protected at this point in time?
The short answer would be yes.
The short answer is yes. Okay. This emergency ordinance was crafted, and perhaps at that time, necessarily so, crafted pretty much around that Vandenberg issue, which you're saying the seniors are not threatened by an ordinance, or excuse me, not threatened by an H2A coming in and taking over and saying, well, you're out of here. I'm putting H2A in here for whatever reason. So I think that kind of minimizes the emergency ordinance. We have been in this process. I know that Ms. Soto said that it's been 6 months. It's actually been about 1.5 years that we have been toying with this idea involving H2A in both residential and the hotel things have kind of found themselves merging together. And we learned last year that the people involved with H2A planned their year for the following year of harvest around this time. So changes that we keep putting in can cause these people to say, well, do we invest our money? Do we not invest our money? What do we do? They're looking 6, 8, 9, 10 months or more out in order to make their business decisions. And to put an emergency ordinance into effect that may not be resolved effectively enough so that they can start their business, I think it could create a problem on the other side of the fence. You were asked, is there any, by Dr. Moats, are there any real estate deals that are going to go bad over this? Or is there anybody going to be hurt over this? And you said you didn't know of any. On the other side of the fence, you have people that are trying to run a business and they have weather to be concerned and about all these other things. And now another something to delay this yet again. I think it's getting to the point where we almost need an up or down vote, and if we're not going to have H2A, then let's not have it. And if we are going to have it, then let's figure out a way that we can learn to live with these people. These people that work under the H2A successfully are members of this community for that 10-month period. And if we're not going to address that in a manner that allows these organizations to do business, then they need to find that out so that we can move on. Having said that, I think that that's been tried in some other communities very close, at least a couple of times, and it forced lawsuits. It forced lawsuits that the cities lost in. So this is a matter that should be settled in a boardroom or a conference room. It should not be forced into a courtroom. And I think these kinds of emergency orders, ordinances, and things like that that are going to get restrictive are going to force us into a courtroom. And I don't want to end up there. The other thing that I think could happen is these people have been bringing in their crops from the fields for decades. And these growers know how to do that. And they're trying to do this thing legally. By the way, no one's broken the law here with regard to HTA. All the laws have been complied with, correct?
Correct.
Okay. If we block these things for whatever reason, either temporarily or permanently, then we will end up making matters, I think, worse. And we will go back to the old way of doing things where the city has no control over it, the government has no control over it that they're giving us to work with, certainly on the police department. And you'll find that we return to 15, 20 people living in a house, 15 or 20 cars outside blocking all the housing for everything, and they'll continue to go. They'll continue to get their products into from the fields into the market. That's going to happen. And I think it's a case where we can see what's before us right now, what's immediately before us. But if you look down the road a bit, we might be asking for something that we're going to be sorry we get. Because we'll end up having to deal with the way we dealt with it in the old days. And that is we go and say, well, I'm sorry, ma'am. There's nothing I can do about moving these cars. They move every day, they go to work, and they come back. And yes, they take up everyone else's space. But there's nothing I can do as a policeman here to prevent that from happening. So this way, if we work in concert with H2A, the issue of buying cars, even though they can go out and buy a car, is highly discouraged. These people do not want to get thrown out of the system. They want to stay here. The growers and the labor brokers, they don't want to get thrown out of the system because they can't get back in for a number of years. So I think that there's room for cooperation here. And all I've been able to find out, there was a young lady, I'm surprised she's not here, Cheryl. Is Cheryl here? Cheryl? She said, I understand that we have the workers here. I understand that we need them. Her parents came here under the Bracero program back in the 50s or whatever, and they purchased their home in a residential district where it was all families, and it's just not the same anymore. We need to have these people here working in the fields, but just not here. They need to move over there, wherever that is. And all I could get from her was, I just don't like the idea. And I've listened to some very nice people that I've known of for years. Jackie Brunello and I go back almost 40 years. And I've listened to others from the Hancock Park area that I have great respect for. But there's still nobody's breaking the law, and I just don't like it here. I don't like what I see. There's no evidence, and I'm coming from my past business of law enforcement, I'm kind of an evidence-based person, so I'm looking for some evidence to show that we shouldn't have this project in our city. Calls for service have gone down at the police department. Essentially, there are no complaints regarding that we can attach specifically to H2A. Where's the evidence other than I just don't like it? Not to forget that ag, I believe, is the chamber here? I think ag is the #1 economic engine in northern Santa Barbara County. I don't think you can make decisions without having that thought in your mind. So I'm having some difficulty coming up with enough evidence to support we need to keep blocking this and blocking this and blocking this. I think what we really need to do, and as I remember sometime in the past, Ryan and Chow were going to have some discussions with some of the leadership to see where we could come together and meet and find some common ground to resolve some of these issues. Is that still going on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, staff has had meetings with members of the ag industry and in drafting the ordinance that went to the Planning Commission and that you will see in a couple of weeks. 2 weeks.
Okay, but we still haven't arrived at a common place where both sides totally agree, is that correct?
I would say there's been progress. I wouldn't say the recommendations match.
Okay. Well, I think this is a difficult decision, and I think before making the decision, we have to understand all of both sides. We can't just decide it on the fact that I don't like it, because there's a lot of things that I don't like, and we just can't just say, well, because I don't like it, it should go away. I didn't like it when they put the mall in. I thought we should have had the older town. I was here to watch it be crumbled. Well, now we have this. And if you're satisfied with that, that's great. And if you're not, then you probably sit on my side of the fence. But we can't make these decisions just because someone doesn't like something. And I will add to this that the issue with the one over on South Nicholson, that's in my neighborhood. I live over by that. And I just don't share in the worry that they're going to be camping in my front lawn. Many of you may not know this, but I worked in the fields. not here in Santa Maria where it's nice and easy. I worked over in the San Joaquin Valley where it's 120 degrees. And the last thing I wanted to do when I got done at work was take a walk. So I think that we need to reevaluate ourselves. I think that we need to give the situation a chance. I think that Jackie Brunello gave me probably one of the best answers, and that was that what we need to do is go through with this and give it like a year. And I said, I don't think you're going to need a year, Jackie. If this doesn't work and these people step out of bounds, either their supervisors or the police department is going to step in, and this will be over with. It will be over with. It's not going to go on. As a city council, we can take these, we call them ordinances, what they are is laws. They're local laws. They can be changed, and this Phil Cinco's efficiency in getting this emergency order out in just a few days is evidence of that. We can change these things. Well, it's going to be a little more than a heartbeat, but not a heck of a lot longer. So I find that there's no evidence to support shutting these things down. And we don't want them here, we don't want them there. It's been suggested places like Costco. That's not going to work. We would almost have to tear Costco down and rebuild it. There's probably 5 restrooms in Costco, and it operated efficiently for that. They would have to put things in there to make it livable, and plumbing and partitions and all kinds of stuff. It would cost millions of dollars to turn Costco into something, and it would need a conditional use permit because it's not zoned for residential. So I feel that the program needs to be considered, and that may not be the will of this council, and if it's not, then I go with the will of the council. But based on the answers that I got, I don't see the need for an emergency order at this time. It may have been a week ago when the mayor was trying to put things together and knowing that she was going to be out of town and thinking, oh my God, it's going to be a time bomb by the time she gets back, and it turned out that it's not really. So as distasteful as this is to certain people in the community, I think given the chance that that matters will smooth out. And we don't have anything to show that this has gone to the negative. Nothing. Nothing that I know of, and if the chief wants to stand up and say, yeah, we have 1 or we have 100, then he can do that and I stand corrected. But as far as I know, there's nothing. So we're just going to throw these blockades in there, cause these things to be held up even longer, perhaps end up having to delay it yet another year for some investors and some workers. I just don't see it. I think it's an empty bag, and we have nothing to back it up. If we had something to back it up, to say, well, our calls for service have gone up, our burglary rate has gone up in this area close to where these people are living, okay, that's something we can look at. But as far as I know, that isn't the case. So unless I hear more from people on the council that other than I just don't want it here, I don't like it here, what are we protecting the citizens against? Is there something that I don't know yet that we're protecting them against? Is there some monster out there that hasn't yet been revealed? It's a question of time, and something will happen, and everybody will say, see, I told you so. But let me point something out with regard to this hotel, motel, however the H2A system that they're going to be working with over here, and they're currently working with on North Broadway. If you go to any hotel that's operating today as a hotel, Santa Maria Inn, Radisson, Courtyard, any of them, and you ask to see their registration. They're going to show you a registration, and it's going to have whatever name on it. You have no idea who this person is. That information was likely filled out by the person that's renting the room. It may or may not have a vehicle license number on it, and it may or may not have a driver's license number on it. Hotel people do not call the police, "Yeah, I got one down here, you guys might want to run this one." And they've got like 500 or 600 guests tonight. That doesn't happen. You don't know who they are. You don't know anything about the people that are coming off of 101 other than they're staying at that hotel or motel. Now, contrary to that, American people go to Mexico, and please correct me if I'm wrong, they work with the American consulate, they take photographs, they get family history, they get fingerprints, and they know who these people are. So at least, if something does happen, and the unfortunate situation comes up where we have to call on the police to do something, we have a starting place. Now, I don't know what the problems might be with regard to how you acquire that information, because some people in certain levels of government won't allow you to have the information, but at least somebody knows who they are. Now, I spoke to somebody else and they said, "Well, can't those papers be forged or something?" Well, yeah, they can, but it's kind of tough to forge your fingerprints. So we would know who these people are. So when I think you look at that, you're even safer because you know who they are. And the fact that you don't have any evidence to show, that's it. And I know I'm going to get beat up on this. I know that I'm going to get, there's people, I can hear the phone ringing now. "What in the heck's wrong with you?" And I swore when I took this job in 2008 that I would never cast a vote strictly to get your vote. And I will not do it here. If we can be provided with evidence to show that this program is not right for not only this community, but for any community. If this is the turning spot, if this is the spot that we turn around and say this doesn't even belong in government, then so be it. But where's the evidence? It's non-existent at this time. And I see all these, I see some people saying, and I say, "Nice job," and I see some other people over here. I'm afraid to go out of here. I'm going to have to get escorted out by the chief here because I know that I'm going to get jumped in the parking lot and probably not very highly thought of. 2 years from now, if this program goes into effect and there's nothing wrong and nothing happens and all of those things, somebody will say, "Well, maybe Mike was right." But until I have something more concrete to vote on, I just don't see what the need is for the emergency ordinance. It's going to take us right back to where we are. Let's press on and get this thing resolved by our own ordinance and so that it's workable on both sides. And if we're not at the negotiation table, we should be. Because if we end up in a courtroom, it's only going to cost Cinco's office more money to fight these issues. This belongs in a boardroom. This belongs in a conference room. It does not belong in a courtroom where some independent arbitrator, a judge, is going to decide how much either side has to pay the other side. And I got a whole bunch of more things I could say, but I just don't see any point in saying it.
Yeah, you were just supposed to ask questions, but I know negotiations have been going on. I've been keeping tabs with Mr. Ng, and I said my concerns were that were being brought to me. And this is a decision, and it's not whether or not we like H-2A. This is a decision that the council needs to make, and that's why it's on the agenda. We cannot sit around and talk to one another. When we talk about and make decisions, it's got to be out here in the public.
Correct.
And so this is a good place for it to be and to talk about it. And so anyone that has questions or information. I did not have the information that I needed that we're getting tonight.
And I
So this was
mentioned that.
fast,
I
yeah.
mentioned that perhaps
So,
it was
and I think
rightfully
that's
so.
important, and then we get it here, and we all hear it at the same time together. Dr. Moats, could you ask your questions, and we'll do comments after public comment, if you would, please.
I have a question, Mr. Cinco. Inasmuch as precedent is important, I understand the city of Salinas grapples with the same issues as we do. And it was my understanding that they passed a ruling that any hotel in the city of Salinas could serve as a place for H-2A people to temporarily domicile. Is that correct?
Mayor Patino, Councilmember Moats, members of the City Council, I'm afraid I do not know the answer to that question. I have paid some attention to the situation in Salinas, but I'm not familiar with that particular piece of the process.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, I'll open it up for public comment. Okay, do we have any written communications?
Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, staff received one written communication from Scott Fina regarding the
That's why I took
ordinance
a
as it
couple of
relates to
those.
efficiency units and affordable housing stock.
Thank you. So, and I'm sure we have requests to speak?
We do. We have 20 requests to speak
20?
against and 5 undeclared.
Geez, if
Okay.
I'd have known that, I wouldn't have talked so much.
Oh, my God.
So he used up all your minutes out there. Okay. Pardon? Okay. So opposed, and this doesn't say, okay. Okay. We will take public input, and if you want to be short, you are most welcome to be short. If not, you can have your 3 minutes, and that little red button goes on at 3 minutes, and then I'll excuse you. So we'll start with Alex Mendoza, followed by Andy Patel, followed by Kevin G. Good evening again, Mr. Mendoza.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, and City Residents of Santa Maria. I actually like what Mr. Cordero said. Our company, we had H2As last year in a certain motel here in Santa Maria. And whenever I would go and pay a visit to my employees, I would see everything in the motel. Prostitution, drug addicts, and there were my employees feeling a little concerned, like, oh man, we're here trying to earn our money and we have a lot of negativity going around our area. Same thing in my R1 housing. My employees, very mellow. Like you said, they get home after a long day of work. They don't want to take a walk. They just want to relax, enjoy the day, speak to their family members. And, with this ordinance, whether it's motels, R1 housing, I like the fact that you said, unless there's something really concerning, no, you know what, let me rephrase that. Not concerning, something that's very threatful towards a neighbor, I don't think there's no reason to ban any of this. If anything, these employees being, I don't want to get into politics, but we hear about our president speaking, we need legal people in our country, people with documents. These are the employees, these are the people. They come with visas, they come with medical exams, fingerprints, and that's just to get to the border. They still have to get past the American Council. And if the American Council feels something fishy about the employee, hey, you know what, I'm sorry, you go back to Mexico. So those are just facts. They're facts. I know, like I said last time, we need improvement in our community. But even if we ban H2A from Santa Maria, it's not gonna fix anything. We're not taking care of things that happen all year round. And I'm talking about the negativity. I said it last time. We have sex offenders in our community. We're not paying attention to that. Drug addicts, we're not paying attention to that. Maybe we are, but we're talking about H2A employees right now, which is very different. If anything, these people are bringing positivity to our community. They're not bothering anybody. They're minding the rules, and I'm sure every employee here, grower, contractor, has very strict rules, and they're not putting up with no nonsense. So, I'm just speaking facts, and I appreciate you guys' time, and hopefully, we just make the right decision. I just say we keep it neutral. I said last time, if we're concerned about having 50 square feet per person, then I invite one of you guys to come out for one of my inspections and come out to see how HED does it. It's very strict. They go by the rules. They check everything from your furnace to your kitchen to your rooms. They measure everything. It's a pain in the butt sometimes, but it is what it is. So like I said, I'm sure a lot of people here agree with me. Anybody wants to come out with me next time, get my number after this and we'll talk. Have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you. Andy Patel, followed by Kevin G., followed by Claire Weinman.
I will try to keep this short. My name's Andy Patel. I represent the Motel de Ville. We had H2A workers last year for the very first time, and I was quite reticent and very hesitant about having them there, but they actually ended up becoming model tenants for us. And like the previous person said, the H2A program has very, very strict guidelines as to what is required per the rooms, which allowed us to, and having the H2A program allowed us to update our hotel to stop it from falling into disrepair and becoming a derelict nuisance property like the Budget Inn once was. And the H2A program, the workers did not cause any problems whatsoever. We did not have to call the police one single time. And they were always in line, never caused any sort of problems. They weren't out, taking a walk after work, they kept themselves and were very respectful. And I think I think having a blanket, moratorium on the H2A program as far as hotels and motels are concerned is very myopic of the council, and I really think that you guys should reconsider. Thank you.
Kevin G., followed by Claire Weinman, followed by Mike Patel.
Hi, my name's Kevin G. I'm a strawberry grower here in town. I don't do my own H2A contracting, but I depend on it. Everything that I wanted to say tonight was stated by council members Soto and Cordero, so I'd like to thank you both. And I'll just keep it short. Please don't do a blanket moratorium on hotels and motels. We depend on it. Thank you.
Claire Weinman, followed by Mike Patel, followed by David Dennis, followed by Kathy Sharam.
Good evening. My name is Claire Weinman, and I'm the president of the Grower Shipper Association of Santa Barbara and San Luis Obispo counties. Our members directly and indirectly provide significant employment and tax revenue to city businesses and residents. Our members continue to experience ongoing labor shortages and rely on the H2A guest worker program to remain economically viable in the Santa Maria Valley. The following excerpts from California Government Code Section 65858C require that the legislative body shall not adopt or extend any interim ordinance unless the ordinance contains legislative findings that there is a current and immediate threat to the public health, safety, or welfare, and that the applicable entitlement for use would result in that threat. We challenge whether a current and immediate threat has been adequately demonstrated. We have not been able to verify the rumors regarding the Vandenberg senior residences, and staff report page 2F explains that the property is already subject to conditions of use and that changes in use would be addressed through the discretionary review process that is already in place. Furthermore, there is no substantiation of the claim that housing H2A workers in motels and hotels may negatively impact local economic growth or development. These circumstances do not constitute a current and immediate threat that warrants the adoption of an urgency ordinance. We appreciate the intent to maintain the existing hotel and motel uses for this season. Although many of the applications to HCD have already been submitted for this season, there may be crops that have a date of need beyond the eligible application window that could be harmed by the adoption of this urgency ordinance. We are particularly concerned with the impact if the urgency ordinance is extended, since what constitutes an existing use is complicated by the seasonal nature of the guest worker program and agricultural employment in general. We have commented previously and continue to receive feedback from members who question the legality of the adoption of the urgency ordinance. Both state and federal laws prohibit discrimination based on actual or perceived race, color, and national origin. We oppose the adoption of the urgency ordinance. We remain willing to find policy solutions that address multiple needs and recognize that one size does not fit all. We believe that a win-win outcome is possible. We ask that direction tonight and on April 16th be thoughtful, informed by the town hall stakeholder process, and include agricultural stakeholders in developing workable solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Patel, followed by David Dennis, followed by Kathy Sharam.
Thank you, Mayor Patino and City Council. My name is Mike Patel. Western Motel on North Broadway. My family has owned and managed the motel for over 40 years. We have no plans of selling our property, and I'm a little confused at the proposal. Is this directed to hotels for sale or regular rental rooms? We have rented to migrant farm workers as far back as I can remember. As we've heard tonight, migrant farm workers come to Santa Maria to work. These men and women are up as early as 4 a.m. and they generally come back around 5 p.m. Other than limited alcohol, these workers are drug-free, and a huge reason, like Mr. Cordero said, believe that crime is down when they are here. In the last few years, we have all, as hoteliers, we have all enjoyed record numbers in terms of income. This has benefited the city and the tourism board as 10% and 2% of the rent paid is passed on. I do agree with Ms. Barfield. Let's not sell out our city residents for TOT. I plead with you, Mayor and City Council, please do not push this business to surrounding cities like Lompoc. If this city loses agriculture as a source of income, the repercussions could be devastating. I would ask that we all take some time to do more research on this and come back together after joint sessions with hoteliers, the city, farmers, and whoever's impacted with this. Thank you for your time. Mike Patel, co-owner of Western Hotel.
Thank you. David Dennis, followed by Kathy Sharam.
Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening.
Council. Thank you very much. My name is David Dennis. I live at 416 East Hermosa, and just about 5 or 6 blocks from one of the hotels on North Broadway that is used for H-2A workers, and the refurbishment of that hotel and the improvement in the area around there has been very welcome. One of my concerns, I think I echo some of what Mr. Cordero said when he talked about concerns of lawsuits, is that here we are 50 years after the Fair Housing Act was put into law, and about 2 hours after the city made a proclamation supporting the Fair Housing Act, yet we're looking at possibly discriminating against a single class of legal residents on where they can live. We haven't yet said, that's a good idea on this council, whether it's R1, R2, commercial, it's like everything is no. And now I think, what kind of place is this that we've got these hardworking people that contribute to our economy? It helps our businesses improve the neighborhoods, at least where I live, that's what I've seen. And it may in fact be in violation of federal law. We need these people in our community. They can benefit by living in the community, shopping in our local stores, being as much a part of the community as possible. And I don't believe this is the kind of thing that is worthy of an urgent ordinance. Thank you very much.
Thank you. A.J. Patel, oh, I'm sorry, Kathy Sharam, and followed by A.J. Patel.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, thank you. I'm going to keep mine short. I cut it off a little bit. I too live at 416 East Hermosa, and I'm not as eloquent a speaker as my husband, so I have to say that you can add my name to the list of people that agree with Congresswoman Soto and Councilman.
That's okay. I'll take the promotion.
Councilman Cordero. Their comments, and I just have to say, I don't understand why there's so much fear surrounding this program and the intolerance for having the workers be our neighbors. The urgency ordinance smacks of racism. and it's shameful. Thank you.
Thank you. A.J. Patel, followed by Joe Leonard, followed by Lupita Kios.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor Patino and fellow City Council members of Santa Maria. My name is A.J. Patel. My family have been motel operators since 1981 from the middle to the north side of Broadway. I too am involved in economic development of job creation, job retention, and job savings in Southern California. Seeing the different cycles of our great community over the decades, let's reflect Santa Maria several years ago. News channels and reporters showed crime, theft, murders, robberies, and lack of jobs due to the above environment. The wonderful partnership between hotel motel operators and labor contractors for H-2A workers has been impactful from my eyes in the north side of Broadway for the following. H-2A workers bring fresh money to the community, which in itself has created new businesses, jobs, most importantly, public safety within the commercial businesses. I believe the local law enforcement will agree. With that being said, I'm against the plan ordinance or proposed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Joe Leonard, followed by Lupita Kios.
Madam Mayor, council members, I'm Joe Leonard. I represent Better River Farms and Bonita Packing. Better River Farms has and will continue to abide by our agreement with the City of Santa Maria. We strongly believe that the improvements to our hotel on North Broadway, which were echoed tonight, have made a better area of the entire section of the street, and it's been safer. The city has also generated incremental revenue for the past 5 years. We make the same commitment on our Nicholson Avenue Hotel. We gladly offer our support and assistance in the development of an H-2A hotel motel ordinance that addresses the needs of the city, the farming community, and the citizens of Santa Maria, but we're not in favor of this urgency ordinance. We encourage the council members to vote no for the following reasons. The ordinance will only drive those H-2A needs not yet approved toward residential areas. Our hotels and motels mentioned in the findings did not displace any person or persons, did not reduce the supply of available housing, did not contribute to the homeless problem facing our city, and did not drive up rental rates. H-2A guest workers have established a positive reputation as law-abiding visitors to our community, whether in hotels, motels, or the residential areas of our city and our county. There is no immediate threat to the health, safety, and welfare of city residents. We respectfully ask that you vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Lupita Kios, followed by Ted Ponce, followed by Jeremy McKenzie.
Good afternoon. My name is Lupita Rios, and I'm here on behalf of District 1 residents and voters. I oppose the approval of 5A, anything similar, and its recommendation. I believe that we can find a way to address housing insecurity without the abrupt displacement of H-2A workers who benefit our community financially, socially, and in the agricultural industry. I grew up and still live on the northwest side of town, and I grew up passing by the same hotels that we speak of at this meeting down North Broadway. My mom works at La Princesa, which is across from La Picosita, and in the last couple years, I've always seen H-2A workers walking up and down the street buying their groceries. I believe that they're part of this community. They're hardworking young men and women who are experiencing a new world and a new country, and they're supporting their families from another country. My mother was one of the many Santa Maria residents to help H-2A workers. She volunteered to translate legal documents and forms for the H-2A workers so they could sign them to be here. She told me stories about the initial conditions they had in the motels and how homesick they were, and about their stay in my community. They were having demand, and now we're facing a housing issue. However, I believe that the housing insecurity issue in Santa Maria is a separate issue. We are a changing community with a dependence on agriculture. Please do not approve this ordinance and follow through with any action relating to H-2A workers with dignity and respect and consideration that H-2A workers are people, not just a labor force. I understand the legal and civic process is complex, but you are serving the community as city council and as people here participating. And while H2A workers live under our community, they should be appreciated. Santa Maria is a beautiful town of Latinos, immigrants, Spanish speakers, low income, and farm worker families, and we should respect that in every single process. Thank you.
Thank you. Ted Ponce, followed by Jeremy McKenzie, followed by Sarah McDonald.
Council members, thank you for your time. My name is Ted Ponce. I represent Andrew Williamson here in Santa Maria. I'm a grower shipper here in Santa Maria. We farm about 600 acres of strawberries. I want to make sure that, first of all, I wrote a speech and I was wondering what I'm going to say. But I think the comments, Councilwoman Soto, also Mike Cordero, is, who are these people? We farm about 3,000 acres in Baja and San Quintin, and those employees that we bring here in the community, they're our employees. We don't bring any employees that they work outside or farms. So we know who they are, they get training. This is the third year that we bring about 600 employees, and we have a 95% return. So they go through extreme, obviously, training and also the consulate as well. So we know who they are. We feel very comfortable. These individuals, obviously, they respect the community. They're hardworking people. I think we're definitely have a concern that who are these individuals? I think you guys know who they are. They stay at these hotels. They stay at the Deville, Motel 6. They stay at many hotels, obviously, in Broadway. They know their names. They know the companies who work in this valley. I think we invite you, we as a grower shipper, we encourage you to go visit the hotels. They're being treated correctly. They understand that they have to abide by the rules, the laws of the state of California, by this nation. I think we have a concern that we have this fear factor that they're going to be obviously respectful to the community. I encourage you to definitely think about this ordinance. It will definitely harm me. I think Mayor Cordero asked the question to Philip Cinco is, what's the harm? We're currently planning to see how many acres we're going to plan for this coming November for next year. We're thinking about more buses or machines. We're thinking about obviously where we're going to house them. If we don't have a process in place, a roadmap to really plan, what are we going to do? If you guys pass this ordinance, it's going to force us to either plan less or just be out of business. It's quite simple. And I think that's what is concerning for us. I think I made a couple comments and I'm just read them out. Does it make sense? It's confusing. What are we doing? Who are these people? I think we need to take a step back and really invite all stakeholders to really figure out what's the right solution for growers and the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeremy McKenzie, followed by Sarah McDonald, followed by Hazel Davalos.
Madam Mayor, council members, thank you for taking the time. My name is Jeremy McKenzie. I'm the general manager for Alco Harvesting, based here in Santa Maria. For the past 5 years, Alco Harvesting has housed employees at the Broadway 11 property owned by Betaravia, and we're currently in the process of moving into the Nicholson 210 property, formerly the Econo Lodge. To Councilmember Cordero's point, let's kind of look at the facts or the evidence. Over the past 5 years, we've had about 1,000 workers come through our H2A program. We have had only one incident that involved an H2A employee that required termination and was subsequently removed from our property and the H2A program in whole. We commit not only to you, but to the city to enforce and uphold the strong guidelines, values, policies that our employees have become accustomed to with our program. The facts are there. We've had very little incidences with these employees. A few considerations to take into this regarding the urgency ordinance. A restriction on hotels and motels would put a further strain on the residential properties in this city. potentially resulting in displacement, which we don't want to do, and increased rental rates. And back to the point of the 5 years and the 1,000 workers, we haven't displaced a single employee by utilizing hotels. We've cleaned up properties, we've brought more money to the city through TOT taxes. I believe efficiency units really need to be pulled out of this, because that is going to cause displacements. Those people do need those units. Hotels are built for high occupancy and turnover. The hotels we use are, they're not going to increase pressure on the residents and the housing in this community. So on top of that, I don't see any immediate threat to the health, safety, or welfare of the residents in the city of Santa Maria. We respectfully ask you to vote no on this urgency ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah McDonald, followed by Hazel Davalos, followed by Carlos Castaneda.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I speak to you today about the temporary moratorium. We need to stop being afraid of housing our farm workers. They provide necessary labor in order to put food on our tables. And not only that, without them earning the livings and harvesting our crops, we wouldn't be able to have the wonderful facilities that we have here in Santa Maria today. Everything is connected. The person who harvests our crops and those who market and those who are working in doing all our different services, everything is connected. We've got to stop being afraid of one another. We've got to be able to honor the farm worker, the farm owner, the person who markets, the people who rely on all our marketing of our goods and services, especially the small business owners that also depend on our farm workers. I know this because my family are owners of Guadalupe Hardware. They have been working with the farm workers for ages and the growers, and I find it very important that we must know that we are all connected, and we need to house them. We have to house them in a safe place that has good services nearby. We cannot be exclusionary anymore. We have got to stop this madness. We're all God's children, and we all deserve honor and respect. And as Dolores Huerta says, we need to honor the hands who harvest your food. Thank you.
Followed by Carlos Castaneda, followed by Rick, I think it's Tomlinson.
All right. Good evening, Council. I'm Hazel Davalos with Cause. We understand the deep concerns about this issue on all sides. It's new and complex and has so many facets. The growth of H2A is a big change in our community, and housing farm workers, both H2A and local families, is a big challenge for our most important industry. Growers need to ensure the long-term viability of agriculture on the Central Coast, while city leaders need to maintain the availability of our housing stock for local residents. We need to be deliberate and responsible and think this through seriously. This should be part of the broader conversation that has been in motion since last summer, when the city began holding community forums to engage residents on this issue, in particular because it's related to the residential housing ordinance that's on the agenda for April 16th. The effects of this motel proposal won't happen in a vacuum. Restricting H2A from hotels could have unintended consequences, pushing worker housing into residential neighborhoods and impacting our affordable housing stock. We urge the council to consider these two items together because they impact one another. Motels are a relatively good place to house H2A compared to many other options. They're built for they're built for temporary lodging, already a commercial use, and don't displace existing residents or use up residential housing stock. In the end, we should remember that this is all a short-term Band-Aid solution. What we really need is a long-term solution to zone areas for development of new farm worker housing, particularly family housing for local year-round farm workers in Santa Maria. This will ensure the sustainability of our local ag industry while promoting neighborhood stability.
Carlos Castaneda, followed by Rick Tomlinson. Good evening, Mr. Castaneda.
Good evening, Mayor Patino, council members. Thank you for an opportunity to speak. Just want to do a little bit of flashback. And last year, when we were here talking about an emergency ordinance, and Phil and I spent a lot of time working on a PowerPoint trying to help educate the community on what H2A was. And it was interesting because nobody knew what H2A was, even though it had been occurring in H2A or in our community for at least 5 years. And so I think that speaks to how well vetted our employees are. So well vetted that we've had 0 calls for public service in R1, R2, R3, or our commercial. Over the past 6 to 7 years, there's been millions of dollars invested in our community, millions, to build either new or repair dilapidated properties in order to use them for H2A housing. I feel we have a fantastic solution at hand. We have an opportunity, and the city can choose to either take advantage of it or to slam the door shut on it. There's tens of millions of dollars sitting on the sideline right now with a lot of agricultural entities that are willing to invest and build new inventory for our community. It is up to this council to decide on how that will be done. I absolutely appreciate the comments of Councilwoman Soto and Councilmember Mr. Cordero. Councilmember Cordero. I think you really get the gist of what we're trying to do. We have a community here that's just here to work, to provide for their families, and they're part of our community. They stay here up to 10 months, so that every bit. It's just like any of us taking a 2-month vacation and just returning. That's exactly what this community does. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Rick Tomlinson, followed by, I can't read the last name, is John, is it ERS, EBS?
ERS or EVM?
Okay, well, you know who you are. Okay.
I know I don't look like Rick, but I'm going to take his spot.
You don't look like Rick, no. Okay.
It's very good to see you this evening, Mayor Patino and members of the council. My name is Laura Brown, and I work for the California Strawberry Commission. The commission represents all of California's strawberry growers, shippers, processors. And I'm here to express our concerns with the proposed urgency ordinance and use of the hotels and motels for housing of H2A employees. Last year at this time, we underwent a very similar process in an emergency ordinance regarding housing for H2A employees in residential neighborhoods, and it was rushed. And as a result of a contentious debate that ensued, it didn't allow for sufficient time for the city staff and stakeholders to have dialogue on the issue. A new thoughtful and inclusive public process took place soon after, where the council and community members had an opportunity to learn about the H2A program and its importance to agricultural employers in Santa Maria, and I was happy to participate in this process and even present at it. During this public hearing process, council members and staff spoke very positively about the use of motels and hotels for housing of H2A employees. Over the years, some of the hotels and motels have faced challenges that required many calls for service by our local law enforcement. Since this transition of some of the facilities to H2A housing, the number of service calls has dwindled to little to none. The city should be commended for creating a successful program which is supported by the local hotel operators and has provided a great alternative to H2A housing. The safety in those facilities and surrounding areas has significantly improved. In fact, hotels and motels that house H2A workers have been widely accepted and encouraged. I'd also like to comment on the staff report that mentions the possible conversion of the Vandenberg Senior residences into H2A housing. In principle, we do not condone or support the conversion of senior housing for the purpose of H2A housing. The City Council should be reminded that the H2A program is highly regulated, and I know we've all gone through an extensive education process on this. Also, this evening, I've noticed references about these people, and I'd like to remind you that these people are many things. They pay taxes through food, clothing, and entertainment purchases. These people have legal work visas. They have families at home. They abide by local, state, and federal laws. And they are residents of Santa Maria. They might be temporary residents, but they are residents, and we shouldn't dehumanize this issue. In closing, agriculture and farm workers are vital to our local economy. Therefore, we respectfully encourage you to continue the path to draft and approve a comprehensive ordinance that truly addresses the needs and interests of the entire community.
Thank you.
We believe that an emergency ordinance would not help this.
Thank you. John? What is your last name?
My name is John Erb, and I'm representing Driscoll's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Followed by Morgan Benevito. Go
So
ahead.
Mayor Patino and the council members, really appreciate the opportunity to speak. So many great comments have already been made, so I'll try to add to what hasn't been said yet. To provide a little bit of context, I work across multiple countries and multiple districts, even though I live here locally. And with regard to H2A, this is a national issue. There's 242,000 H2A workers that came in 2018, and that's up from about 165,000 in 2016. And worker housing, our growers across many areas have hundreds of housing units, so this isn't unique to Santa Maria. And what you guys are trying to solve for, or at least provide parameters that are reasonable, is definitely worthy of your attention. So I appreciate you really listening to the community and what we're saying. I think we all agree that we want to minimize displacement, but also really address the supply issue. And so Councilmember Moats made reference to other regions such as Salinas, and the city of Salinas, for example, commissioned a study, an extensive survey of farm worker housing, and the conclusion was really about supply. There's just not enough supply of affordable housing. And so California is trying to address a real affordable housing crisis, and we're looking for supply solutions. That's kind of the bottom line, while minimizing displacement. And so when we look at the current ordinance being proposed, motels and hotels, I would agree with many that have already made comments today that is a very reasonable solution to pursue. The other piece, as let's say an active, looking for investing ourselves in creating solutions for over 2,000 workers that are employed by Driscoll growers in the area, is the efficiency units ordinance that was passed in 2012. And so in some of the commercially zoned areas, there's investment opportunities that we would definitely like to entertain. However, this ordinance creates additional uncertainty, and really as potential investors to the solution, really what's being proposed makes us take a step back. And so I really encourage you to reconsider the language about the efficiency units in particular. Thank you.
Thank you. Morgan Benevito, followed by Leo Corona, followed by George Adam.
Thank you, Mayor Patino, Member of City Council, Morgan Benevito with People's Self-Help Housing. I just want to step back and say that we've been kind of part of this conversation for a while now. As you know, we house permanent farm worker housing in our Los Adobes De Maria complex, and we've been at the staff meetings taking feedback on this H2A issue that's been kind of building it for a while. I think staff's had 4 or 5 different meetings. So we want to commend staff for working with the community, taking feedback. We have very capable staff. We really enjoy working with them a lot, city attorney and planning staff together. So we feel like that process is going well, and there's a lot of good ideas being shared, and hopefully we can get to a good ordinance in the end. People's Self-Help Housing is looking at trying to now solve the issue of H2A housing, where to put them, and we are looking in the area of creating new permanent units, efficiency units in commercial zones. And this would increase housing stock and, of course, accept those farm workers that are being encouraged to not be in an R1 zone but be somewhere else. So they got to go somewhere, so we would create that somewhere. So that would be a solution to the problem. The other thing is the properties we're looking at will not displace anybody, so there's no existing residents there because we don't want to create a displacement issue. So we're looking at and want to work with staff to create the solution, and People Self-Help Housing would own it and manage it and construct it, and so it would be built to our standards that you are all familiar with. But the emergency ordinance creates a bit of a kink in that if we include efficiency units in that prohibition for whatever time, we kind of put a chill on the investment aspect. And we are, looking at certain investors to come in and be part of this. And if we put a chill on the investment aspect, we could end up preventing the solution to the problem that we're all trying to solve. So we want to make sure that we're being very careful and cautious about this. We would urge you to at least pause this emergency ordinance at minimum. I can't speak to the hotel issue. That's not really our expertise. I can only speak to the efficiency units. But we would like to work with staff continuously to develop something that does work and hopefully pause on this emergency ordinance because it could end the solution that we're all trying to work towards. Thank you.
Thank you. Leo Corona, followed by George Adam.
Sorry about that. Mayor Patino, council members, my name is Leo Corona, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the H2A employees. Although I am an employer of H2A, I speak on behalf of them as some of them are my dear friends. They speak the same language I do. I am here because of the Bracero program. Both of my grandparents came to the States 50 years ago, and that is the reason why I'm here. So I feel that they too can have an opportunity in the future if an immigration reforms comes through, for them to also apply for a permanent residency and bring their families. As it's no secret, everybody knows the United States is where everybody wants to come, and their families would be more than willing to take advantage of that opportunity. So anyhow, I want to point out the fact again, and I'm probably echoing what a lot of people said already, but H2A employees are human beings. They may not speak the language we all do here in the States, but nevertheless, they're here to work. They're human beings. I've spoken to Councilmember Soto before, and I've told her, who's representing these employees? Yes, we may be the employers, but nevertheless, they're part of the community now. Why are they being thrown around like a soccer ball? And as Councilmember Cordero said, that nobody wants them in the backyard. I don't mind them. I live on the northwest side of Santa Maria. My parents live on the northwest side of Santa Maria. And even though we're talking about hotels, it's encompassing everything, like Councilmember Soto said. Okay? So I don't mind these employees. I just hope that the council takes all this into consideration and votes against this. We were looking already at hotels for the future, but with this in place, now we're at a standstill saying, now where do we go? Do you want us to bust them all here so they can all ask the council to where they're going to go next year? Because they're just as concerned as I am. Every single meeting we go to, we try to educate our employees. And this year, we've always told them they have to be in their best behavior. Because the city council or the city community or the community members are looking at them with a spyglass. Yet, the rest of Santa Maria continues as is. There's no parking in the streets, shots being fired here and there. Yet, like I spoke to Mr. Cinco before, I haven't seen no outcry on that. I haven't seen no town hall meetings on that. So I feel we're being targeted. I hope you vote against it. Good evening.
Thank you. George Adam, followed by Paul Allen, followed by Francesca Shepherd.
Mayor Patino and council, thank you for this opportunity to speak, and I want to commend everyone for their speaking tonight. Boy, it's been very excellent and a hard act to follow since almost everything's been covered. Anyway, the big thing I'd like to talk about is the strong economy and how, you know, the homeless issue's been tied into this, and the best thing for resolving any kind of a homeless problem is a strong economy. And it's going to give us more dollars to donate and more dollars to be able to address that issue, but really that's the biggest thing that can impact it. The crime reduction, really there's no burden. I mean, you heard about all the reduced amount of crime, but there's no burden on the legal system as well. They're just taken back to Mexico and it's over. It's not a long, costly, burdensome process that we see otherwise. There's a lot of bad PR that's been given, as we saw during those meetings with the town meetings. You know, a lot of the reports that people felt were H2A were not. So there's a lot of confusion as far as, you know, those per capita issues just aren't there. You look at any per capita problem with an H2A worker, and it's, you know, it's a fraction of anything on the domestic population of equal, you know, in the same social status. As far as the negative impacts, it's been mentioned several times, and I'd like to mention it again. As far as investment, no one's going to invest in any kind of housing if you pass some kind of an ordinance like this. Just going to, like you said, it's going to have a cooling effect. It impacts values, and as much as we don't like the affordability issues here, it's great to have a strong economy, and that's what California is. And we're all trying to develop a stronger economy. It improves our property values, and, you know, we have to address homelessness and other issues by having that strong economy through other donations and addressing the mental health issues and other issues that go along with that. I mean, that's my opinion. And another thing that we see that was addressed with, as far as prejudice, you have a lot of emotional speculation of what might happen. And that's really not what we need to be involved with. And a lot of that is born out of prejudice, and we just have to do away with that type of, and not cater to that emotional speculation. And I think the approval of the efficiency housing units is a definite thing that needs to be done for non-H2A to address those other issues relative to housing prices. And if Leroy, if you need an escort, I'll give it to you.
City Council, my name is Paul Allen. I own Main Street Produce and Freshway Farms. And this is almost like a deja vu for me. I was standing here at this podium about a year ago when City Council put the temporary moratorium or ban on H2A workers living in residential homes. And at the time, I had already contracted some H2A people coming and staying in some residential homes that we had set up. So during that course of the next several months, I met with several of you and the city attorney, and it was clear to me, and is what you guys had told us, that the best housing for temporary H2A workers were motels. So we went out and we secured motel rooms for H2A workers that are going to be here in a few months and going to work here for about 3 months. And so I'm kind of, here we are again, doing what I was told, and so we're kind of a little bit confused. And I also own a company called Main Street Produce, and it's a refrigeration cooling facility, and a few years ago we had an expansion, and we had pretty sophisticated refrigeration equipment installed, and we had to hire construction contractors to come in and install the refrigeration equipment. And they sent their employees to our facility, and they stayed in motels here in Santa Maria. And they worked at our facility for several months until the job was completed. So I guess I'm still confused. Is this going to, are you going to also ban other industries like construction of coming in and working, sending their employees and the employer paying for the motels? Or are you just going to discriminate against H-2A because of their visa status and because of their country of origin?
Thank you. Francesca Shepard, followed by Keaton Donchak, or Donchal, followed by Ernest Armenta. Ms. Shepard, can you pull the microphone down, please?
I had a prepared speech, but I'm throwing it out because I'm going to tell you something about why I'm here, and this is probably, hopefully, the last time. I've listened to this evening. I'm not prejudiced. I'm not phobic about immigration. I'm an immigrant myself. I have lived here 52 years. The first intraocular, if anybody sits here with an intraocular lenses, they started here in Santa Maria. My husband was the first one implanting them. We had the first surgical center in California, the 7th in the nation. The Marion Medical Center, the parking lot, and the nursing home there was built, was promoted by A.J. Deani. Some of them knew him, and Merle Williams and myself. I had the biggest fight ever with A.J. because he wanted to build houses there. We had an administrator here that said, if you look in the future, you have to look at it as a campus, not as a piece of land. And we have a cancer center. That property I sold to the hospital and worked on the cancer center for many years. We have a retirement center, Merle Garden, that has 45 units. For 245 units, people live in there. I have a property, I know I feel so sorry for those people that are going in the motel. I own this property, 64 units in there. Plumbing is horrible. There are 2 30-gallon hot water in there because I had a lot of problem with this property. I don't know if they spend some money redoing with the plumbing, but if there are going to be over 200 people in there, they're not going to be able to get a shower or flush the toilet. So that is my personal view, having been there. I bought this property years ago to have it redone for medical. And I wanted to see if we could either have a medical building there. We need a heart center. We need units for mental illness. And I did not know until 3 weeks that somebody was negotiating and buying that property. If I had known that, the doctors had negotiated, but it fell down by the wayside again, and I didn't have a chance to even think about it. And I'm looking at this something that the city needs. I have nothing against the workers. We should have gotten together and looked at other places in town and given to them a very nice place for them to live. This is going to be a mess, but that's what my opinion is.
Thank you, Ms. Francesca. Keaton Danchow, followed by Ernest Armenta.
Good evening, Mayor Patino and honorable members of council. My name is Keaton Panchow at 1107 North Broadway from the Lower Lodge. I'm here to support the H2A housing for the hotels and motels. We've had great speeches, great input, so I'm just going to sit back and relax this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Ernest Armenta, followed by Andy Caldwell, followed by Sergio Sanchez.
Ernest Armenta, City of Santa Maria. Perdóneme español, pero cuando yo estaba joven, yo trabajaba en la lechuga, en el apio, cauliflower, and the lettuce. We used to stay at the Campos in Lamont and Lemoore, in Indio and in Blythe. We never went into the city. The Campos were on the ag land's owner. The people that owned the land, that's where we stayed at. And those Campos were good. We'd have compound, we had a community kitchen, and in there we were private. We policed ourselves. We made sure that everybody was playing by the rules, and if there were those that did not play by the rules, but we didn't go call the police on them. We kept it quiet, because we knew if we said anything, we'd be out of a job. I'm here because, and I'm going to ask Mrs. Chavez, Mrs. Allen, and the two State of California Strawberry Commissioners, give us a little bit of time. I'm in favor of this ordinance, but I'm asking you to give us a little bit of time, because I got a dysfunctional city council. We need to get ourselves in order. Because I tell you right now, if it passes or not, you do not want this to go to the voters of this city. You don't want a ballot measure saying yes or no, because I assure you, you'll lose. It doesn't matter how much money you got. The tensions are tight right now. We have two factions, everybody's fighting, and this council could have fixed it years ago. So I'm asking, just give us a little bit of time. That's all. We're not saying no. Just give this city just a little bit of time to get their stuff, get their act in order. We need to. Something has to happen on this part. Okay. The causation of the problems are not right here. This is the causation. We need to get our act in order. So, Madam Chair, you have to fix this. I understand. I'm in support of the ordinance. Not a permanent one. But Mr. Cordero, you guys, you're my elected officials. If Mr. Cordero can't make the hard decisions, then you four have to. There's the other one over there. Ms. Soto, something needs to be done. You have to clean house. Because things are going to get bad. And they're going to get bad before they get better. So Mrs. Waterfield and Mrs. Soto and Mrs. Patino and Mr. Cordero, we need this for your benefit, for you can get the house in order. I said it before and I'll say it again, that I don't know why we don't have the ag landowner here. They may be here in the audience, but the ag landowner should be there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Armenta. Andy Caldwell, followed by Sergio Sanchez. Wow, Andy, are you making it on your regular circuit here?
Not by choice. This is, Madam Mayor, I've been a government watchdog for almost 30 years, and this is probably one of the hardest problems to solve. I have nothing but respect for Francie Shepherd and what her family's done for this community, but also for these legacy farmers who are the best in the world at what they do. The bottom line is farmers are in a crisis. They are in a crisis. And housing is just one of those crises, but I look at this thing, it's like a balloon. You squeeze it in one place, the problem gets bigger somewhere else. We need a macro approach, not a knee-jerk reaction. We need a long-term plan. And unfortunately, right now, you've got too many pieces moving on the table in terms of you haven't even decided what you're going to do with the residential, and now we're moving to the hotel-motel. And I appreciated everything Councilman Cordero said except one thing. I do believe that commercial or industrial can be the escape valve, the pressure relief valve, because they're out of residential areas and they're not housing. But they're housing workers, and right now we're having a problem with brick and mortar buildings surviving the internet age. So again, the H-2A program could go away. Comprehensive immigration reform could happen. So what we're really doing here is trying to address critical needs and critical shortages, but we need to do it with long-term thinking and not knee-jerk reaction. I understand that the farmers are in the bind. I understand some homeowners may think their property values or their quality of life is going to be impacted. But we do have to do the best thing we can, and I agree with Councilman Cordero. You need to talk with the farmers, the neighborhood activists, and hotel motel owners and law enforcement and come up with the best win-win situation versus a piecemeal hit that again, just causes the problem to mushroom somewhere else. Thus far, my belief is the H-2A program is the best program we have going. It certainly beats undocumented workers. Secondly, you had a crime problem in these hotels and motels that actually got solved by H-2A. So don't throw that baby out with the bathwater prematurely while you still haven't solved some of these other things and you don't have a long-term plan. We need a long-term plan. And I think that's what Francie Shepherd has been talking about. That hospital area needs a long-term plan. We need places not just for families as the people's self-help housing. We need workers for single workers, dormitory-style units. So come up with solutions, don't make the problem worse.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Sanchez, you are our last speaker.
All right, so I better do good, huh? Good evening, Mayor and council
You
members.
can always just say, everybody has said it for me, and walk away.
Mine is going to be different. You're going to like this part. Sergio Sanchez with the California Strawberry Commission. I just wanted to provide some information regarding Councilmember Mott's question about City of Salinas. I am a resident of Salinas, 10 years in City Council over there, that's a different story. But we've been actively working with city leaders and staff regarding the same issues that you're facing. And they started with the same recommendation to pass moratoriums and ban certain housing. So the council said no, directed staff to work with us, stakeholders, and we came up with some short-term solutions in one of the hotel use for H-2A housing. That was it's been called a TULIP, and it's a temporary land use permit, and that is going to be a policy that's going to be in place for the next 6 months, with the possibility of extending another 6 months if necessary until a permanent solution is found, working with the stakeholders and city leaders and staff. And so that was passed by the Planning Commission 7-0, and also reaffirmed by the City Council 7-0. The only concern is how soon can we get the permanent ordinance regarding this issue. And what it provides, it addresses the issues of the activity, how many people, that stuff, and it puts some temporary and reasonable regulations that allows for the use of some of these underperforming motels, older. They're not the Hyatts and they're not the Hamptons, but they definitely provide a short-term solution. The outlook is that that will provide hotel owners to invest and do some permanent solutions. Just in regards to the TOT, they thought after the 28 days, they thought it was not significant impact into the budget, so they thought it was a good exchange and a great benefit to the community. On a personal note, workers would like to live with families, with children, because they're young people, they're missing their families, and they'd rather live that, but that's not an option of this because of federal regulations, so they gotta be mandated where to live and how to live. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone for the civil decorum this evening. I certainly appreciate it. And thank people who attended our forums, because I see many faces out here of people who attended the 5 forums that we had. I know that we have been talking with some of the growers and with grower shippers and with Mr. Ng, and so I think we're very, very close to coming up with something. I think Santa Maria is seeing and hearing all of you tonight, and this is very, very important, so I thank you so much for being here. If I thought that if we put an urgency on everything, we would have a full house, every single council member, but sometimes we only have a couple of people here. We all know that we need the worker program, and we've been asking DC, we've been asking the feds to solve the problem for us, and they've not done that. And I do acknowledge that at the Budget Motel, which was purchased by Better Area Farms, that the crime went down to nothing. We know that. They cleaned it up. It looks great. And and you were, I think it was you, Mr. Leonard, that said about the hotel, no, somebody else, about the motels and how it did help clean up North Broadway, and there wasn't any pushback on that. So I just, again, thank you very much for the decorum you've all displayed tonight, and the people in Santa Maria are seeing and watching you. Any comments from the council?
Yeah.
You use it for your 3 minutes, Mr. Cordier.
I've got about another hour and a half or so we can talk. The mayor doesn't certainly need this council person or any other council person to come to her defense. However, she said it a couple of times, I think I referred to it, when this emergency order, as I understand it, was put into play, it was because she was leaving town. And people are saying that they don't understand it, they don't understand why we're doing it. When this was discussed, there was limited options. And she's leaving to be gone in D.C. I don't have any idea what she was doing there, but I'm sure it was important. And so it was a necessary thought at that point in time. The other thing is, I would like to suggest that every one of us in this community, the listening public, I hope that this line gets published in the paper, that we're talking about two different things here, even though we didn't talk about it much tonight. The H-2A program and the illegal aliens, the immigrants that come here, sneak across the border and work here, are two totally different subjects, totally different sets of people. There are no rules that we can enforce. I can remember as a law enforcement officer going to a house that had all these problems and there was nothing we could do. We turn around and walk away. That's a frustrating feeling for a law enforcement person to go there to solve a problem and you got to turn around and say, hey, ain't nothing I can do. So this gives us some teeth. This program has some government control that we can fall back on and call one of the labor managers and say, hey, this is a problem. And that's going to happen someday. I don't know when, but we're going to call somebody and we're going to say, the music's too loud, they're drunk, they're throwing beer bottles in the next door, fix it. I suggest to you that everyone I've spoken to is going to say, I'll be there in the morning, and they'll fix it. It may cost them money in the long run, but they'll probably, I think they will fix it. So please, understand that we do things up here based on the information that we have to work with at that time. It isn't always correct, but we do our best. Always keep in mind that we have two different sets of things. Please separate these groups of people. The people that are illegal are different from the people that are here on an H-2A program. And I thank everyone for coming forward and speaking their piece. And I appreciate the opportunity to continue working and trying to resolve this. I hope that the mayor will direct additional dialogue with all the stakeholders that like Andy mentioned before he sat down. We need to get back into negotiating and not be forced into a courtroom. Please remember that. If we get in a courtroom, everybody's going to turn around, put their backs at each other, and we're going to end up losing. All sides will lose. So I hope we enter into some additional dialogue. Thank you for the time, Mayor.
Thank you. Do you want to say something? Dr. Moats?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I had the opportunity last week to visit the South Nicholson Hotel, and I was given a tour by Mr. Leonard and Mr. McKenzie, and I found that the operation just looked to be excellent. It was clean. The H-2A workers have lots of amenities, big screen TVs, microwaves, beautiful bunks, enough room, large areas to have a congregation or rest and relax and in the back area where the pool, which is still there, but is going to be eliminated. And I support H2A. I think it's probably an excellent way to get labor for our agricultural industry. And I agree with Andy Caldwell that I think the future is in commercial and industrial and not residential. So I support programs like Better Evia Farms, and I hope there'll be others that are similar to it that look half as nice as yours. And so that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Ms. Waterfield.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I want to thank everybody for coming here and expressing your concerns, your reasoning, and I think that's what's so great about America, is that we can say what we want to say, and we're respected by what we say. So in that case, as I respected all of your comments, I would ask that you would do the same for me. I come at it from a different point of view, and my point of view is that we had used phrases as the needs of the city. Who are these people? Farmers in a crisis. I want to look at it from the permanent residents of the city of Santa Maria. These are the people that have years ago bought their homes. Their homes are their only source of investment. The reason I asked for the minutes to be included, what Mr. Leonard had said last time, was Mayor Patino asked him, what is the status of your project on Highway 1? His response said it was good. We passed through the fish and game or wildlife, and that was great. But the next response is what got me. We decided not to build there because it wasn't cost efficient to us. And so now we're placing the people that come in to work on the backs of the residents of the city of Santa Maria. And I listen to them every single day. And I see the looks that I'm getting right now, and that's perfectly okay. But when did we become the city that has to take care of a business that is run in the county? Back in the Becerra program, where my brothers worked in Yuma and El Centro and all those places, it was on the land. Now, farmers have an option. They have an approved project out there. But yet, the urgency of this ordinance is that they're going to buy up property as motels in the city of Santa Maria, like the Oklahoma Land Rush, because if we don't put that urgency ordinance on it, we're going to see a whole slew of hotels being bought up. We just approved 2 years ago a 2% increase in TOT tax to market the city of Santa Maria. And it's becoming difficult all the time to do that. And so I am in favor of this emergency ordinance. What is 45 days to you, unless you've got something in escrow right now? My responsibility is to protect the city of Santa Maria and the residents and their investments and what is happening in this city. I don't believe that it is the city's responsibility, and when did it become the city's responsibility, to have to take this on us. We were generous in the past, but as everything goes, now it's become a huge problem. The residents all over the city of Santa Maria do not care for this program, but, and I will say it again, the farmers have an option. They can build in the county. That has been approved. You should be having these discussions with the Board of Supervisors, not with the City of Santa Maria Council, because that's where your ag land is, that's where your profits come from, and we need to go back to the Becerra program and making those great places out there. You've got those tiny homes that you can put out there. San Luis Obispo approved that in the county for the farmers. And I believe that's exactly where we need to go. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Soto?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I talk about this all the time, and I need to reiterate and share with you one more time, or again, I should say. I am proud to say that my parents were farm workers, and it's thanks to agriculture that we had a roof over our heads and food on the table. And so what I've learned recently, and what I've learned is that agriculture has a huge impact in Santa Barbara County's economy, especially in Santa Maria. The backbone of Santa Maria is agriculture. The backbone of our economy is agriculture. And so that's one thing that I want to say. Another thing that I also want to say is that when we're talking about this emergency ordinance in particular, I find it really interesting how just after we learned about Econo Lodge being converted into H2A, there was an uproar and there was an issue. Why now? That's what I don't understand. Why now when H2A has been in our community for years, when motels have been used for years to house workers? Like, why now? Why now? Why after Econo Lodge? That's another question that's one thing that comes to mind. And another thing too is that at the end of the day, farm workers, H2A farm workers, are a part of our community. And they contribute to our economy as well by paying taxes, by shopping in our stores, by buying food, being a part of Santa Maria. And I think that at this point in time, we have to again honor the work and the process that the city of Santa Maria has undertaken when it comes to coming up with a strong policy around H2A, something that's long-term and something that's long-term and something that's, again, a good policy. And when it comes to protecting residents, when it comes to protecting, I should say not displacing families, especially vulnerable families or vulnerable communities here in Santa Maria, I'm all for that. Let's talk about policy that truly protects tenants' rights. Let's talk about policies that truly protect our most vulnerable communities, rather than just coming up with last-minute ordinances that could have long-lasting impacts in our community. I mean, we're going to be discussing this issue again in 2 weeks. I mean, what's another 2 weeks? So, thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you.
You know what? I would like to answer the question to Ms. Soto of why this came to the start, and it's everything I have been saying from the very beginning. As a planning commission, when we approved the motel's conversion into efficiency apartments, they were on Broadway, North Broadway. Never did we ever approve it for H2A housing at all whatsoever. You talk about vulnerable, you talk about displacement, that's happening right now. We had an apartment building that because they had a bad tenant, there were hundreds of families that were displaced. We couldn't find homes for them at all whatsoever because of the low housing that we have in the city of Santa Maria. So when it takes the housing is taken up by a lot of these things, the hotels the main purpose were for the displaced families or low income. We don't have that anymore now. That has been taken up by H2A. And we've got a lot of people that are here, a lot of people that are going to be displaced in the city currently.
I'd like to know the exact numbers of families that have been displaced due to housing H2A workers in motels. And that's one thing that I would like to know. But to another point, to your point that you just made, when we're talking about displacing residents and families, I mean, if we put this emergency ordinance in place and we're saying that we're not going to house them in motels, they're going to be housed within our 3s, our 2s, which are higher dense communities.
That's yet to be decided.
Well, I mean,
that's yet to be
so
decided.
we're jumping the gun. Why are we talking about this, why are we jumping the gun when we haven't even talked about Part 8 first?
Okay, did you want to say something, Dr. Moats? Okay, let me ask you something. We are going to be bringing this back in 2 weeks on the residential. Can this portion of it be combined with that?
Mayor Patino, members of the City Council, I believe staff may be able to bring some initial ideas to you, but we are certainly not in a position to bring a final recommendation in 2 weeks. As you well know, what staff has been saying for several months now is our goal was to get through the residential component of this issue and then pivot and study the commercial. So we have some ideas. We've had at least one meeting with some hotel owners in the past. We may be able to bring some ideas, but I don't want to represent that we'll be able to bring something that you can adopt at that meeting.
Okay, and I'm not making excuses for myself, but with limited information, and I'm glad we brought it here. I'm glad we had the discussion. I think it's important, and you certainly have enough information now to put together an ordinance, and with Mr. Ng. And so that's why I wondered if that could be combined, because when we start talking about it, it does all fall together and come together as really one issue. So,
I mean, if we had a little, excuse me, I don't mean, Madam Mayor, if we had a little bit more direction as to what specifically you'd like to see in such a combined ordinance, that would be of great assistance. If you're just talking about
well, we're talking about the
review process for
residential, whether it's R1, R2, R3, and whether or not what we want to do with the commercial side.
But those are two separate meetings that we have already said that we were going to have, isn't it?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't know if they can combine this into one.
So,
Mr. Cordero.
Yes, Mayor, are you talking about combining the dialogue into one or combining the ordinance into one? Because that's pretty cumbersome to get the hotel motel situation tied in with the residential.
Well, that's why I was asking. That's why I'm asking
So
that.
you actually would like to tie the two ordinances together?
I don't know if it can be, and because it does blend together.
Well, we certainly...
Because if you're not going to have it in R1 and R2, then on R3, then where are you going to put it? So, but I don't know that because we've not discussed that yet, and that's in 2 weeks. So.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Mr. Cinco, can you please clarify what discussions we will be having on April 16th around H2A housing? What was scheduled?
Well, nothing, Mayor Patino, Councilmember Soto, we haven't agendized anything yet, so we don't have anything. The initial tentative plan was to bring forward the Planning Commission recommendation, and that's what we intend to do. That doesn't mean we can't open up the discussion to include some kind of framework for, commercial. I'm not optimistic that we'll be able to wrap everything up into a combined ordinance in one meeting, but we certainly can open up the discussion.
Well, and that's fine, but it needs to be discussed and clarified. As I said, if we're not going to do R1, R2, or R3, then where are we going to do it?
Yeah, well, it would certainly be part of the discussion, even if we're just acting on the Planning Commission recommendation, because they are related.
The Planning Commission's recommendation was the R1, R2, and R3, and that's what we're going to be discussing on the 16th.
Yes, that was the plan.
Okay, and so does the council feel that it will be too cumbersome to throw in motel in there as well? I mean, it's all...
I think we need to keep them separate. I mean, at this point...
Well, we can get there, and maybe that's what'll come out of it. Dr. Moats.
I think we should separate them. I think we're going to have plenty on our plate in 2 weeks just with dealing with residential. Although I do agree with Andy in his analogy of a balloon. If we squeeze on the balloon to exclude residential to any extent, it's just going to balloon into commercial
Exactly.
and manufacturing. So the two are certainly interrelated, but I think that's a fight for another time.
Well, but maybe at that time, we can give better direction on what we want. If we do.
Well, let's hope so.
But I don't know what our decision is going to be in 2 weeks, but it should give us better direction on where we're going to go after that. Is that a consensus here, or?
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, I agree. That we just do residential.
Well, we do.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, we will do residential, but then maybe we want to put portions of commercial in that too. I just don't want to just limit it just to that in case that we decide to go over.
Well,
So-
and in respond to what we're going to be specifically kind of boarded into is the Planning Commission and what they have decided in regards to H2A. So
We
did
will-
that give any, did they make any recommendations for commercial or industrial?
Mayor Patino, Councilmember Waterfield, no, it was limited to the item before. But we can agendize it in such a way so that commercial is part of the discussion, even though we're talking about we're bringing the Planning Commission recommendation forward. That we can certainly include that.
And we can always then continue it.
Absolutely, and I frankly, I expect that it'll be difficult to come to consensus even on that ordinance, the Planning Commission's recommendation at one meeting. Staff already believes that it will probably take more than one meeting.
Okay.
Unless you're able to come to a consensus, but we're not expecting that.
Okay.
It's possible, but we don't expect it.
Okay, well, we'll just play it by ear then. Is that a consensus here? Is that good? Okay, thank you, Mr. Senko. You have a consensus, you know where we're going. Mr.
Yes.
Ng, you know where we're going, right? Did you want to make any comments?
Yes. The only comment that I would add is any consideration of the commercial portion may need to go through Planning Commission review as well, because it is a land use in Title 12. And
Okay.
so Planning Commission took action on the residential, but did not on the commercial.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, you guys know where we're going then.
So then,
So we don't do anything.
Are we going to vote on this ordinance for tonight?
We're not going to do anything.
So we're
We
not
don't,
voting on
we
that
don't have to
ordinance?
vote, we don't have to vote on
Do
it.
we have to vote on it?
No,
No, there's no vote required. There has to be a
Yeah.
motion. If there's no
Yeah.
motion, then no
we just
action's
have a
taken.
consensus, yeah. Okay, thank you very much for coming this evening.
Oh, let's see, that took 4 hours. Yeah, it was. Well,
Well, I mean, there was a lot of information that we didn't get at the forums.
Fair enough. Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. As we've been discussing, the next meeting of the City Council is April 16th. The main item on the agenda will be a discussion of H2A zoning ordinance amendment. We also, on the 16th, have planned a list of road maintenance projects and a proclamation for Serve Santa Maria, which will be having its 10th anniversary, and that we want to recognize that program. And that concludes my report.
The next item is the oral reports of council members. Who would like to start?
Okay, when was the last meeting? March 19th?
Probably the
The 19th, okay, fantastic. Madam Mayor, I attended on March 20th the Enforceable Manufacturer Homes meeting at Rancho Buena Vista, and we had our wonderful gentleman who's sitting in the audience run that meeting. On Monday, March 25th, we had the second meeting regarding the mobile home issue, and at that meeting, we had city staff, we had a lot of residential homeowners there, park mobile home owners attended that along with their attorney. We had our attorney there as well. On Thursday, March 28th, I attended the CCWA Board of Directors meeting in Buellton. Later that day, I attended the open house for the Parks and Recs, and that was a really nice reception that they had over there. And that was pretty much it.
Thank you. I'll go. March 20th, Jason, City Manager Stillwell, and I attended the Santa Maria Public Airport District meeting. That same day, I attended the Youth Making Change North County Grants Awards celebration. That was that. Did nothing then. Oh, I don't think I should. On Sunday, March 24th, I attended the Latino Legacy Awards through Future Leaders of America. On March 26th, I hosted Coffee with the Council member at the Boyce Restaurant. On March 28th, I attended the Recreation and Parks Open House at the Abel Maldonado Youth Center. Oh, and that same day, it got recognized as Women of the Year by Senator Hannah Beth Jackson. That was cool. Another opportunity to talk about Santa Maria. And yesterday, March 31st, I attended the grand opening. Oh no, that's Sunday, not yesterday. Sunday, March 31st, I attended the Corazón del Pueblo grand opening and Open Streets staff. Our police officers, Chief Hansen, they were amazing. It was so much fun. It was a great event. So to all of the organizers and our staff that worked that event, thank you so much. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thank you. Dr. Butts.
Well, I'm kind of short here. Last Friday, I went and looked at the H2A housing on South Nicholson, which I thought was actually really quite cool. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you. Mr. Cordero.
Thank you, Mayor. On the 20th, I attended the Youth Awards given at the Minerva Club. And that was primarily, I think, by cause, wasn't it? And you were there?
Mm-hmm. No, it was a fun for Santa Barbara.
Okay. That was a lot of fine young people from many of the schools in town did a great job. I took a particular interest to one young lady that was having some trouble speaking, and I realized that she was going through some stress, but I thought she did a great job, and I called her aside to tell her personally that I felt she was doing really good and that she should expand on this public speaking issue. But it was a pleasure to deal with the group. On the 21st, I attended something that's new to our community. It's migrating up here from the Oxnard area. It was called Farm day kickoff, and it was held out at the Far Western, and it was a nice event. I gather that it's going to be kind of like an information exchanging group to tell government leaders more about what's going on in the ag business in the community. On the 28th, along with Ms. Soto, I was at the promotion for the sergeant at the police department, and then I later went to the Maldonado Center for the Rex and Park opening, and it was really kind of a neat deal. There was a lot of old pictures there. I didn't know some of the people by looking at it, but I certainly recognized a lot of the names for the old sports figures here in our community in Guadalupe. And I don't remember the date that I was there, but I met with the people at the South Nicholson H2A hotel changeover. I was impressed by, as Dr. Moats was. One of the impressive things for me was that they had found and cleaned up a bucket full of hypodermic needles that were very likely used by IV drug users. And on the bunk beds in the smaller rooms, there were 4 in a room, and then on the larger rooms where the TV and microwaves were, they had 6. And they said that they were there and they measured all the rooms, the federal government did. I don't know what they've done about the hot water issue that Francesca spoke of, but they have added 20 washer and dryer units so that the people on both floors can keep their clothes clean. And that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. March 20th, I went home for good, a funders collaborative in the San Ynez, down in San Ynez at the Marriott. That afternoon, I had my teen advisory committee meeting at Pioneer Valley High School. In fact, we're taking them to the police department tomorrow. So you can be there as a greeter, Chief Hansen. On March 21st, I went to Santa Barbara to attend the SBCAG Board of Directors meeting. And then in the afternoon, had the APCD board meeting also in Santa Barbara. On the 22nd, attended the Fighting Back Santa Maria Valley board meeting. And that evening, the Oasis 10th annual gala, where they celebrated the Openshaw family. And I guess it was a sellout crowd that night. March 23rd, I spoke at the Vets Memorial Building to at a veterans event for the American Legion Hall. March 25th through the 28th, I went to Washington, D.C. for SBCAG to lobby for more monies for transportation, and I will give a better report once I get it all together. But they really want communities and counties and to deal with the whole regional program as we do with SBCAG, but they want to make sure that you have state money and that you also and we're a self-help county, so we're putting in money that way. And so we just need money for the 101 and just for the last 2 portions that need to be done. So I think it was a very fruitful effort. One day we had 7 meetings, and I'm still wondering how we did that. But we started off early in the morning, and it was just run. And so I think today I'm probably back in recovery now. I'm in my recovery mode. March 31st, attended the Santa Maria Open Streets opening ceremony, and also at the Corazon del Pueblo ribbon cutting. And our congressman was there also, and Joan Hartman from the 3rd District was there. Ms. Soto, Ms. Waterfield, and I were there. And so if you get a chance to see the exhibit, go on upstairs. It's great. And April 2nd, this morning, I did the Ben Hayes Show, went to my Teen Advisory Committee Task Force at Santa Maria High School, went to the meet and greet at the parks, at the new intern that we're going to have in the youth on our youth committee, and that is about it. Anything
Madam
else from the dais?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I forgot to add that I also did the tour at the Econon Lodge with Bonnie Pack
Oh, okay.
yesterday.
You did the Ben Hayes show.
You forgot you did the Ben Hayes show? Oh,
I forgot to tell you.
oh, okay.
And
Well,
how are you doing with the Ben Hayes show?
I listen to you. You do great. Meeting is adjourned.